Every day you face challenges and opportunities, changing market dynamics, increasing business complexity, changing customer expectations, regulatory changes. You need agility to respond to the challenges today and take advantage of the opportunities tomorrow. You need to change how you work. In the office, the Appian low-code platform can help. Appian lets you orchestrate people, technologies, and data into a single workflow so you can drive real business impact. Speed is the new battleground. Slow development and apps don't work with today's business demand for speed and agility. Change is inevitable. The Appian low-code platform gives you the power to discover, design, and automate powerful apps and workflows so you can stay ahead today and tomorrow. Learn more at appian.com.
Okay, season 6. Oh, this'll take forever. Or not. Do I just focus on when things don't work and not appreciate when they do? I love it when work actually works. I just booked this parking spot, this desk, and this conference room. I'm filing status reports on an app that I made. I'm not even a coder, and it works. I like your bag.
When your digital solutions work, the world works. That's why the world works with ServiceNow.
Low-code and no-code platforms offer a great, fast way to develop low-risk applications. However, not everyone is going to automatically know who to work with on governance, ideas, risk, things like that. That's where we come in. We have a training program meant to lessen the stress and introduce guardrails for application development. Learn more today at pmi.org/citizen-developer.
Every day you face challenges and opportunities, changing market dynamics, increasing business complexity, changing customer expectations, regulatory changes. You need agility to respond to the challenges today and take advantage of the opportunities tomorrow. You need to change how you work, in the office and out in the field. The Appian low-code platform can help. Appian lets you orchestrate people, technologies, and data into a single workflow so you can drive real business impact. Speed is the new battleground. Slow development and apps don't work with today's business demand for speed and agility. Change is inevitable. The Appian low-code platform gives you the power to discover, design, and automate powerful apps and workflows so you can stay ahead today and tomorrow. Learn more at appian.com.
Okay, season 6. Oh, this'll take forever. Or not. Do I just focus on when things don't work and not appreciate when they do? I love it when work actually works. I just booked this parking spot, this desk, and this conference room. I'm filing status reports on an app that I made. I'm not even a coder, and it works. I like your bag.
When your digital solutions work, the world works. That's why the world works with ServiceNow.
Low-code and no-code platforms offer a great, fast way to develop low-risk applications. However, not everyone is going to automatically know who to work with on governance, ideas, risk, things like that. That's where we come in. We have a training program meant to lessen the stress and introduce guardrails for application development. Learn more today at pmi.org/citizen-developer.
Every day you face challenges and opportunities, changing market dynamics, increasing business complexity, changing customer expectations, regulatory changes. You need agility to respond to the challenges today and take advantage of the opportunities tomorrow. You need to change how you work, in the office and out in the field. The Appian low-code platform can help. Appian lets you orchestrate people, technologies, and data into a single workflow so you can drive real business impact. Speed is the new battleground. Slow development and apps don't work with today's business demand for speed and agility. Change is inevitable. The Appian low-code platform gives you the power to discover, design, and automate powerful apps and workflows so you can stay ahead today and tomorrow. Learn more at appian.com.
Okay, season 6. Oh, this'll take forever. Or not. Do I just focus on when things don't work and not appreciate when they do? I love it when work actually works. I just booked this parking spot, this desk, and this conference room. I'm filing status reports on an app that I made. I'm not even a coder, and it works. I like your bag.
When your digital solutions work, the world works. That's why the world works with ServiceNow.
Low-code and no-code platforms offer a great, fast way to develop low-risk applications. However, not everyone is going to automatically know who to work with on governance, ideas, risk, things like that. That's where we come in. We have a training program meant to lessen the stress and introduce guardrails for application development. Learn more today at pmi.org/citizen developer.
Every day you face challenges and opportunities, changing market dynamics, increasing business complexity, changing customer expectations, regulatory changes. You need agility to respond to the challenges today and take advantage of the opportunities tomorrow. You need to change how you work, in the office and out in the field. The Appian low-code platform can help. Appian lets you orchestrate people, technologies, and data into a single workflow so you can drive real business impact. Speed is the new battleground. Slow development and apps don't work with today's business demand for speed and agility. Change is inevitable. The Appian low-code platform gives you the power to discover, design, and automate powerful apps and workflows so you can stay ahead today and tomorrow. Learn more at appian.com.
Okay, season 6. Oh, this'll take forever. Or not. Do I just focus on when things don't work and not appreciate when they do? I love it when work actually works. I just booked this parking spot, this desk, and this conference room. I'm filing status reports on an app that I made. I'm not even a coder, and it works. I like your bag.
When your digital solutions work, the world works. That's why the world works with ServiceNow.
Low-code and no-code platforms offer a great, fast way to develop low-risk applications. However, not everyone is going to automatically know who to work with on governance, ideas, risk, things like that. That's where we come in. We have a training program meant to lessen the stress and introduce guardrails for application development. Learn more today at pmi.org/citizen developer.
Every day you face challenges and opportunities, changing market dynamics, increasing business complexity, changing customer expectations, regulatory changes. You need agility to respond to the challenges today and take advantage of the opportunities tomorrow. You need to change how you work, in the office and out in the field. The Appian low-code platform can help. Appian lets you orchestrate people, technologies, and data into a single workflow so you can drive real business impact. Speed is the new battleground. Slow development in apps don't work with today's business demand for speed and agility. Change is inevitable. The Appian low-code platform gives you the power to discover, design, and automate powerful apps and workflows so you can stay ahead today and tomorrow. Learn more at appian.com.
Okay, season 6. Oh, this will take forever. Or not. Do I just focus on when things don't work and not appreciate when they do? I love it when work actually works.
I just booked this parking spot, this desk, and this conference room.
I'm filing status reports on an app that I made. I'm not even a coder, and it works.
I like your bag.
When your digital solutions work, the world works. That's why the world works with ServiceNow.
Low-code and no-code platforms offer a great, fast way to develop low-risk applications. However, not everyone is going to automatically know who to work with on governance, ideas, risk, things like that. That's where we come in. We have a training program meant to lessen the stress and introduce guardrails for application development. Learn more today at pmi.org/citizen developer.
Welcome to the Low Code, No Code Summit, brought to you by VentureBeat. We're excited to have over 1,000 pre-registered attendees joining from across the world, and thousands more tuning into the VentureBeat live stream channels. So thank you for being here. We have an incredible lineup of speakers, and we are kicking off the day with a great conversation. I'd love to introduce Frank Fernandez, Director of Engineering of Credit Karma, and Arun Saigal, CEO and co-founder of Thunkable. In conversation with our very own Sharon Goldman at VentureBeat, they'll be discussing the topic, using AI to power no-code platforms and streamline work.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sharon Goldman. I'm a senior writer at VentureBeat, and I cover AI. So I'm particularly glad to be here for this session with Frank from Credit Karma and Arun from Thunkable. So I thought we'd just start and have you guys introduce yourselves. So Frank, maybe you could go first and then Arun.
Thanks. My name is Frank Fernandez. I'm an Eng leader at Credit Karma. I'm specifically in charge of Credit Karma's mobile applications and web technology stacks. We build the tools and the technology that helps folks build surfaces in Credit Karma's applications. And for those who don't know Credit Karma, we're very simply, it's an app that helps people enable financial progress. We have over 120 million members around the world in 3 countries.
Thanks so much, Frank. Yeah, my name is Arun Seigel, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Thunkable. Thunkable is the low-code, no-code platform for anyone to build native iOS, Android, and mobile web apps. In my role, I oversee everything we do at the company and really think about what is the future of low-code and no-code and how do we bring it to the masses.
Great, perfect. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here with you guys, to talk about this topic. We're focusing on using AI to power no-code platforms to streamline work. And this is so timely. This is right in the thick of where issues are at in the workplace and the use of AI. So, every company, doesn't want to slow progress. They want to speed growth. They don't want their workloads bogged down. So I kind of wanted to set the context for our listeners and viewers about how, historically workloads have been bogged down. The idea that you would always have developers involved in a project cycle, things can get very complex and time consuming. Arun, could you start us off on that and talk about sort of setting the landscape of the history of that?
Absolutely. So historically, as you mentioned, workloads have been bogged down by people always having to involve software developers in the software development process. Now, while that sounds obvious, that ends up leading to a number of difficulties. First of all, you have to have software developers, and there's been historically fewer software developers than the needs that there are. But also, if you look at the workflows, software developers work on ideas that they're passionate about and that they have. And many problems that exist in the world today, that exist within companies and organizations, are problems not being faced by software developers. So what ends up happening is that someone has an idea. They need to get the resources, the funding, et cetera, to hire a developer. And then you have the idea, go to speccing, go to a product manager who works with the designer. Then they pass it off to the engineer. The engineer builds something. Maybe it doesn't exactly work with what the users want or what the product manager or designers ask for. So it goes back to them. And now you have this cycle where you're going from PM to designer to engineer, back to the designer and the PM. And the cycle continues repeatedly. And the end result is that it takes a lot longer to get an idea to actually into production than it should, in my opinion. And so the question that we found ourselves asking is, how do we reduce that time from idea to prototype to production? Because at the end of the day, even now, if you look at a number of statistics out there, the requirements of mobile app and software app development, the number of applications needed, the amount of resources and people needed are only increasing over the next 10 years at least. And we're not creating enough software engineers to actually keep up with the demand. So the question is, how do we make this process more efficient? How do we reduce the number of cycles required to develop software? And as a result, how do we fail faster, move faster, and ship faster so that, one, we're able to get ideas to life quicker, and two, so that we're able to reduce the number of required steps in the process, and as a result, reduce the room for error, for miscommunication, and for things getting lost in translation.
Yeah, perfect. Frank, you're obviously Credit Karma is right in the mix of all of this. Can you talk a little bit about how that historically has worked in your company, or just, what you've seen?
Yeah, definitely. And to build on Arun's comment around like how this is, the scalability of engineers and engineering work, you would think that these types of no code, low code tools, engineers would actually be apprehensive to use them. But actually, we see quite the opposite. When we build this technology, in my teams, we share it with the other engineers. They love it. I think it's great. Engineers like to build things once, build it scalable, and then not work on it again. You're always replacing yourself, working on new and cool tech. So some of these tools help unlock them to be able to do other things and focus on some of the harder challenges. The way that we use these types of tools at Credit Karma, though, obviously, members, the value of Credit Karma is getting access to your data. So we grab the financial data, especially from the credit bureaus, and then how do you present that data, right? So there's lots and lots of data. Your credit report has, thousands of things on it. And so we always have this kind of mantra of data to pixels. So how do we get the data to pixels? We want to get it to the screen, and how do we want to get there as as conveniently and automatable as possible? A software engineer on his own can't actually, on his or her own, can actually get to do that because it's just like a large problem. So there has to be tools in place, and Credit Karma has built several of these internal tools, over the years, and it's actually built to a lot of success there. So that's kind of my take on it.
So, of course, it's important to make sure that the engineers are on board and that they obviously like using these tools. Obviously, it's also important to empower non-engineers and get them involved, that could increase speed, that could increase efficiency, I assume. So I'm wondering, how you can empower non-engineers through these tools. That's a big trend as well. And just kind of closing the gap, I guess, is the way that you would put it, kind of between the engineer and the non-engineer through these tools. Frank, could you start on that one?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things I really like about these tools is it really drives inclusivity in the office. So there's, back to like misnomers about engineers. Some people don't think engineers are approachable, or, oh man, they know so much stuff. These tools actually kind of level the playing field. And so what we see at Credit Karma is we see our product managers, our analysts, all these different folks who are actually interacting with engineers on a daily basis, actually helping to build product and to do experimentation and to apply machine learning models and all these things together. So we actually see it as a way to kind of reiterate, drive inclusivity in the office, where it kind of levels the playing field a little bit, where people work together. And then when we see people work together, we obviously get better results because we have a pretty well-rounded team. So that's kind of where we see these tools in place. I think we have an internal technology at Credit Karma. We call it containers, but containers is essentially is built around a scripting language that we have in the company that pretty easy to read, pretty easy to understand. It actually powers a large part of the surfaces in the company, and then we're able to interoperate with technical tools on IDEs, but also we have web-based tools which allow no-code and no-code solutions to get things to production, actually to test them, to change the content, to change the colors. It aligns with our design guidelines and all those things. So we kind of, in like say 25% of the things that you see on our app, it's actually built by someone that's not an engineer, and they all actually looks pretty good and it responds well and performs well. So I'll end there.
Arun, what's your take on, that idea of inclusivity, sort of closing the gap, I guess, between the engineer and non-engineer when it comes to these tools?
It's a great question. And I really like how Frank framed it, because at the end of the day, for us, we think of these tools, if nothing, it's to allow for inclusivity in the workplace, in the world, where now it's not just whatever the software engineer wants to work on that actually gets done, but it's whatever who has the idea and the passion for it that gets done. The demand for developer talent, as we said, is just outpacing the talent that's available. And when we talk to our clients at Thunkable, we see that they have small dev teams often, where small I'll use to mean any size really, that's expected to deliver the output of a team 2x, even 5x the size. No matter how big their teams are, they're always expecting more. And that's really where these no-code tools come into play, because they help these small teams move faster and especially work on the mundane task. As Frank mentioned, there are a lot of developers who you might say, oh, are they interested in using such tools? But what we found is that a lot of developers are actually very excited to have these tools exist, because now, as discussed, the business analyst can get involved and work on a project that needs to be done. A designer can now not just design some mock-ups in their design tool, but actually turn it into, first off, a functional prototype, and then realize, wow, I can actually deploy this directly to the web, to the app stores, etc. And so for us, it's really about making a place that, one, is more inclusive, but I think more than that, just allows everybody to actually be contributing members, bring their ideas to life in a world where so many companies have gone from being, so hierarchical and the ideas come from the top, to a place where anyone and everyone with a good idea should be able to get involved. And by having low code and no code tools, anybody with an idea is now actually able to get involved. And the flip side of that is they're now able to also reduce the cost of failure. So not only is it about getting involved, but it's about trying a bunch of different things. And when you have more hands who can get involved and try a number of different things, you have more time for experimentation. You learn what works, you learn what doesn't work, and you know where to invest. So even when you have a project where you say, okay, we're going to have this group of developers work on it, now you can say, hey, instead of throwing something over the wall and say, see what works, you can say, hey, we've tried to build 10 different versions of this. This is the best one. We've experimented with it and proven that it works. And now we're going to take that and say, this is the thing we're going to invest in and we're going to build out. And I think that's one of the real joys and promises of no code and low code tools, is that it allows anybody to get involved, make the workplace more inclusive, and make ideas from anywhere not just be able to be thrown out there and suggested, but actually come to life and get the time that they deserve.
So that's interesting. So would you say that, Arun, that the experimentation side of that is not just for the non-developer, for the developers as well, that even, the experienced developer is also able to experiment? So it kind of has, the two-sided benefit for the experienced developer and also the non-engineer.
Absolutely. I think the nice part is that for the experienced developer, and prior to starting Thunkable, I was running an engineering team at another company, and I used to use tools similar to what we had built to help myself move faster and experiment. Because at the end of the day, if I had a quick tool that I could do something in and just see if it worked, it allowed me to cut out, I was running an Android team. And so if I wanted to change the color blue on the screen that I was looking at, I would change my color and then I'd have to package the app and install it on the phone. And then if that wasn't right, I'd do it again and again. And while on the web, it's easy to just, change some CSS and refresh. On mobile apps, usually you're repackaging and installing them on the phones. And so, just to change a simple color, it takes 15 minutes. With Thunkable, for example, you have the ability to live test your app. And so as you're developing, you can actually see it live on your phone, which means now what took me 15 minutes only takes, 15 seconds. And that's really powerful. And so when I was running this mobile team and I said, hey, if I want to change the color, wouldn't it be nice if I could just use a tool that would let me do that really quickly rather than for doing that in the development environment I was working in? So that's, I think, really valuable. The other part is there are a lot of what I'll call menial and boring tasks that exist as a software engineer that you're doing. A lot of your work is setting up environments that have already been set up, copying and pasting, code from somewhere else. Ideally, you're not doing that, but often you do. And a lot of it is kind of what I would call more mundane stuff. And the really nice part for developers is that now they can kind of offload that to the no-code tools, if not even to other people who can use the tools. But if the no-code tools can do a lot of the complicated work, then they can do the interesting and really thoughtful work. Just giving a simple example, if you want to take a photo with an app that you build and you say, hey, when I open my app, take a photo from the camera, take a picture, store that picture somewhere, and now go do image recognition on it. That flow is a fairly complicated thing to build, but conceptually relatively straightforward. Lots of apps have camera functionality. Lots of apps have image recognition functionality. With a tool like Thunkable, you can just say, hey, when I open my app, open my camera. When I open my camera, take the photo. When I take the photo, store it in my database, do image recognition. That's just 5 or so little code blocks that exist in Thunkable, and you can do that in 2 minutes. And that means that the developer can do that in a no-code tool and then focus on the new and interesting things that others haven't done. And that, I think, is the real value for developers.
So, Frank, do you also see that at Credit Karma as far as like experimentation?
Yeah. So the Credit Karma is kind of like some of the secret sauce is that we've had a lot of home-built tools for over a decade on experimentation that really helps us get the right experience in front of the user. When I joined the company 4 years ago, I was very surprised at how amazing our actual experimentation engine was. But it's a very we do have some automation tools for it and stuff. But one of the things that my team does is makes it very easy to use. And so we kind of limit the scope and the focus. While an engineer can do a set of experiments, very complicated experiments, do some great stuff, there's a base set of that functionality that's really useful. And we bake that into all of our tools. And like building on top of that is we also have a pretty strong design language. We call it KPL, Karma Product Language. It's kind of like a Lego kit full of components. We bring the experimentation together with a standard component set so that whenever you're building experiments and you're changing things like colors, we have kind of like some guardrails around that. Like we actually have a color palette and things like that. So you're not just left to your own devices to pick a color. We actually already have like patterns in place. So the tooling, leverages a lot of those things.
Well, now I definitely want to turn a little bit to the AI concept itself. I'd love to discuss some specific examples of how the use of AI can help create these tools, these no-code tools that, do things once and then automate, so you can go more quickly and do that experimentation that you were talking about. So wondering if you could talk about, the need to build these tools using AI models built into them so they automate and learn. Arun, could you start us off there?
Absolutely. So my background is actually in AI. That's what my graduate and undergraduate and graduate research and work is in. And I think, the accessibility to AI is the new table stakes requirement for enterprises. A few years ago, it was okay to have a black box and say, okay, it's the PhDs who are dealing with the AI stuff and we don't need to worry about that. It'll just happen. And now every platform is infused with AI capabilities. Think about any company that you work with that has a chat bot that's automatically figuring out, various things that are on the screen, et cetera. AI has become table stakes, like I said, for any enterprise. And so for low code and no code platforms, AI needs to be as easy as just dragging, dropping, and turning it on. It has to be built into the product. So if you think about the example I gave a moment ago, that was image recognition, right? Built in out of the box to Thunkable. You say, hey, I take a photo, I need image recognition. You don't need to know how to write the code to do image recognition, and you don't need the whole corpus of data. You just need to know that it's already been built and it works, right? And I think all of these tools need to have AI built into them and need to allow for folks to build out AIs. And that's just because that's the direction that the world is going in, right? There's the quote, of course, of, software is eating the world. But now you fast forward that a few years and it's really AI specifically that's taking over. even the most mundane things that you use, the simplest apps and websites that you use, all pretty much have AIs built into them at this point. And if that isn't built into these products, that will become a problem, because at the end of the day, they won't allow you to push your business to the cutting edge. But secondly, a lot of these concepts that are really complicated AI concepts that have now been developed don't need to be reinvented every time. You don't need to reinvent the wheel every time you're trying to do something new. And so if they are built into these platforms, which they are, that allows the non-developer, again, to get in and use the AI tools available to them to actually create solutions that are unique and interesting. By anybody within an organization having access to speech to text, text to speech, image recognition, chatbots, things like that, that automatically empowers them to use AI to solve significant problems that they have and that they're facing. And so that's core to our product offering, and I think going to be core to the next many years of enterprise and small business software development. And what platforms like ours are doing are giving those tools that were built by the PhDs to the masses.
Yeah, Frank, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well, as far as building the tools using AI.
Yeah, so to talk about, like, take a step back to like what Credit Karma is doing and what the challenges we have are. So I mentioned we try to like help enable financial progress for our members. And so one of the challenges, as I mentioned before, is that we have a lot of data. The other part is we also have a lot of there's a lot of things for you to do to enable your financial progress. And every person and every member has their unique path to get to that financial progress. We're all in very different stages of things. One of the challenges we have is we just have this one small surface. So that's all you get. I just get this. And so one of the ways that for those of you who had Credit Karma in your pocket, if you scroll down from the main page and you scroll down, you'll see around like 10 stories, we call them, 10 offers or 10 tips about your financial health and things like that. That's all powered by a pretty sophisticated AI ML system that we have at Credit Karma that's been built over the last over a decade, and it makes it challenging. And so if you're an engineer, even the process of getting access to build a surface like that, it's a large project. It takes a long time. So as you mentioned before, to unlock, we want to be able to unlock that ability to build these kind of like very useful, compact, take that data, turn it into great pixels that look good, that are interactive, and like get this access to the customers. But to complete that cycle around, AI and machine learning, we actually have to like see what happened. Did you interact with that particular story? Did you like this? How long were you on that page? Did you scroll all the way down? Did you only scroll half of the box? It's really important that all the tools actually have tracking built in. And so we have the same thing, is that the tracking actually helps complete the cycle, complete the training, so that we can help make, every time you're opening up the app, it's actually getting better and better. And so that thing that I mentioned on the dashboard, the main real estate at Credit Karma, that's actually all built by non-engineers. So we have teams of people who are actually creating stories and leveraging the AI, looking at the results, improving, making better versions of it. And so like it's this great like healthy cycle of said engineers, analysts, product managers, and data science all working together, to help enable Credit Karma's mission.
Great. Well, we just have a few. Oh, sorry, Arun. Go ahead.
I just want to jump in a quick in there, because I think the blending of skill sets is now a must-have for development, IT, and product teams. And I think we've been talking about developers and non-developers, but really what we view it as is the developer of the future, right? In the future, the developer is the person who has the idea and the access to tools. And if you think about people who manipulate data, there used to be people who manipulated these big SQL databases, and then we started realizing that a lot of people could work in spreadsheets, and they are people who manipulate company data. There are people who work in SQL databases and work with company data, and it's not they're all engineers and people who are working with data, right? And I think similarly, it's not going to be in the future, who knows how to write this programming language versus that programming language. It's not coders versus no coders. As we move forward, we are basically building these tools and creating what what we view as the developers of the future. In the future, it's going to be people who have ideas and are smart and logical and have skills. And whether or not you learn Java or Python or C++ or Thunkable, you're able to create software, and that I think is so integral to the developers of the future. And one other point I wanted to jump on there that Frank mentioned is that using AI to be built into the tools is important, but also to actually build the tools. And I think, as he mentioned, one of the things similarly that we do is we actually have the ability to learn from how you're building and then give you suggestions on how to build better. And I think if you think about that's so powerful, because now you're not just a developer who's saying, hey, I'm going to build an app from scratch and I have an idea, but rather you're saying, hey, I'm going to build this app from scratch and I want to place this, I don't know, button or something. And we have data to tell you, hey, actually, this is the best place to put the button to get the best results. And so not only are we giving tools to developers to make their lives easier, but we're also learning from them and then giving that data and feedback directly to them so that they can improve their own development processes. And again, that's why I think this is creating the developers of the future. Software engineers right now are now having AIs help them be more effective doing what they do. And the non-software engineers are all of a sudden getting access to development tools that they haven't had before.
Well, we just have a minute left. I'm going to put Frank on the spot to finish off here. If I were talking to you guys, a year from now, where do you think this sector, as far as using AI in low and no code tools, where do you think things are going to evolve to?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I've seen a few waves of these things, over the years as a developer myself, working in web tech and working through a few different companies and things. Definitely see a new wave. Look at Thunkable. Actually, was kicking the tires on it. Pretty awesome product. We're really far beyond, like, say, PhoneGap, which was like a tool that people used like a decade ago. I do think that this, like, the delta there, though, is this like interaction into like the data, into the AI, which wasn't really built before. So I definitely see also, like, I just see more products that are going to be built by this kind of combination of, even engineers using like low code tools and, so non-engineers also using low code tools and coming into a place. I suspect this will be a little bit more sticky this time. This wave of kind of no code tools would just, be a part of people's workflow, and people will need to know these. These will be the skills that you need to get a job. The days are going to be over that your skill is just looking at spreadsheets and things like that. Like, what do you actually do with that data, and how do you actually get it in the hands of people in your business? So I think that's the delta this time.
Well, I think that's a perfect way to wrap this up. Although I'm sure we could talk for another half hour at least on this topic. It's definitely super interesting and growing. So thank you so much to Frank and Arun for joining us. And thank you.
Thanks, Sharon.
Thank you.
Thanks so much to Frank, Arun, and Sharon for that wonderful conversation. Now, remember to click on the pop-up to access the next session, which is Accelerating Transformation and Unlocking Your Talent with Citizen Development. That will begin shortly. Remember to join Frank and the other speakers for the Speaker Q&A Roundtable, taking place at 12 noon Pacific. So next up, we have another awesome conversation with an organization leading the way in citizen development. Please welcome Chris Beddy, Chief Digital Information Officer of ServiceNow, and Marcus Torres, GM and VP of App Engineering at ServiceNow, who will be talking to Victor Day of VentureBeat about how to accelerate transformation and unlock your talent with citizen development.
Hey everyone, my name is Victor Day. I'm tech editor here at VentureBeat, covering everything in AI, cybersecurity to the latest developments in next-gen technology. Joining me today on this discussion are Chris and Marcus from ServiceNow. Chris, Marcus, why don't you tell us a bit about your current role and your background?
Sure, I can go first. Chris Beatty, I'm our Chief Digital Information Officer, been at ServiceNow about 7.5 years, drive ServiceNow's digital transformation as we continue to scale and grow.
And I'm Marcus Torres. I'm Vice President and GM of App Engine, which is our amazing low-code platform here at ServiceNow. I've been here 4 years, and this is my passion because I'm all about allowing everybody to innovate. And I think we have an amazing platform to allow people to do just that.
Great. As we all know, low code is a trending subject that intrigues every tech enthusiast and practitioner out there. So I look forward to getting crucial insights for everyone watching. First, let's start a bit of background on ServiceNow. Can you tell me about what the company does and your mission?
Sure, I can start, and then Marcus, feel free to chime in. Our mission is pretty simple, to make work better for everyone. And we serve about 80% of the Fortune 500, dozens, if not hundreds, of public sector organizations around the world with things like citizen services. We really help our customers in a few areas. Help our customers serve their customers better, providing great customer experiences. Streamline operations across procurement, supply chain, cloud operations, HR, IT, every operation that a company has to drive productivity, efficiency, and speed. Help our customers serve their talent better with amazing employee experiences, and our flagship set of products around technology. Help organizations be excellent at technology. And as the technology strategy is really the business strategy, that's becoming more and more important every day. We do that with our amazing platform that is becoming the platform for digital business. And we have 4 workflows: technology workflows, customer workflows, employee workflows, and finally, creator workflows, which is our low-code platform.
And, that's really the other side of the story for ServiceNow, this amazing platform that our customers are leveraging to do amazing things. We say the world works with ServiceNow. And in the future, that means that they can really digitally transform anything about how the world is working using this platform to do automations, to do digitization, to leverage intelligence, to really take their business and those operations that Chris just mentioned to the next level. And in order to allow everybody to do that, we want to democratize development by really lowering the bar for those who can innovate. And that doesn't take away from all of the amazing artists that are developers today. It's really about allowing other people to paint just as they can, just in a slightly different way.
Right. We've heard about how you are using low-code strategies within your organization and with customers. Can you tell us about what are some examples that would really highlight how all this comes to life?
Yeah, and I love that. I can start. So we are customer zero. We leverage all of the amazing products that Marcus builds to scale our own digital transformation and to scale our company. And I love the question and really getting into examples, because examples are what makes it real. Low code, no code as a buzzword has been around for a while, but low code, no code at scale is something else. And a couple easy examples. Take procurement. And every company is probably tracking their ESG efforts. We are too, looking at our suppliers, how are they helping with ESG, which ESG program are they aligned to? And no doubt there was an Excel tracking spreadsheet. So an individual in procurement using our low code, no code platform, turn that into an app where multiple people could collaborate, add attributes, add approvals, generate reports, all kinds of things. Got rid of those Excels, drove a ton of efficiency, and it's just better. Who wants to track things in Excel when you can have an app that's available on your mobile device? We had another group that actually collaborated across Singapore in Asia and another senior manager in the state of Georgia here in the United States. And they were looking at their team and saying, our team is really hungry for career development. Let's quickly develop an app to build an inventory of skills that we have, build what skills that people want to build, align that to projects and opportunities. And now managers and employees were interacting, collaborating, signing up for things. All of that would have been email, Excel, slow, inefficient, or maybe not got done at all. And there have been so many examples like that. We've actually had citizen developers create apps using virtual agents. We've had citizen developers create apps using mobile. All of those things would have been impossible to even think about a few years ago, that somebody outside of a central tech organization would be creating virtual agents with NLU or mobile apps. All that is very, very real. I think year to date, we've had our citizen developers create 100 plus apps, which is 62% of all of the apps that we've deployed for the company. So it's a huge part of our strategy as a company, and to empower the talent and help them digitize their own work.
Now, Chris is talking about all the great efficiency we've done here at ServiceNow, but I really like telling the customer stories, right? I really love connecting with what our customers are seeing out there. And just to give you an idea of the sort of adoption that and the value that our customers are getting, every single one of our top 20 deals in Q3 included Creator Workflows and App Engine so that they could digitize. And we have amazing world-class SaaS solutions that really help our customers do any number of just critical functions in their business. But what about all the white space in between? What about all those operations? And so Bear is a great example of this. And I'm using them because, they are regulated. They typically would have long development cycles. They would have to go through a lot more hurdles in regards to compliance. And so what Bear has done is they actually took that complexity, that compliance and legal, and they said, we want to streamline all of these operations. We want to give our customers, being their employees, a single experience, so that if you need to ask legal for help in any any part of their function, same thing with compliance, and this goes across all different functions in their enterprise. They can do it in one seamless experience and surface all those different business services in a common way. And they do that fast. And it's produced over 30,000 different sort of requests or asks for help to the compliance and legal teams. And the automation rate, this is what's different about the Now platform. This is what's different about App Engine. The automation of those asks is at 80%. So just think of that. Out of those 30,000, right? 24,000 requires no intervention, and it just happens. That's the way the world works. And that's how we really want to see all of our customers going forward. Another similar example is a customer, Novant Health. They've done amazing scale around citizen development, where they took a huge team of citizen developers and they said, go and innovate. Just like Chris mentioned earlier with the 100 apps ServiceNow has created, they have over 84 that they were built purely by citizen developers, and it increased their overall dev capacity, if you think of it that way, by 40%. That's the power of App Engine, and that's the power of ServiceNow.
Right. And it's no secret that every company today is grappling with tech talent shortage. So how have you seen the impact? How have you seen that impact the demand for citizen developers?
I can start. I mean, IDC has a stat out there that says 750 million new apps need to be built by 2025. Centralized tech organizations are not going to be able to manage it. And so citizen development, and Marcus just talked about a customer example where it increased their dev capacity by 40%. The dev capacity, software engineers, that is a constraint on digital transformation, and low code, no code citizen development is an unlock to that constraint, because the demand to automate more, drive efficiency, drive productivity, create experiences to serve your customers and talent, the demand has never been higher. So hugely important.
And what Chris is referring to is this dev capacity that's traditionally been, I'm a developer. But guess what? Development is a team sport. And in the new age of digital transformation, in the new age of work, that team sport is the partnership between a citizen developer and a traditional developer, whether that be IT or in some other centralized function. And when you get that, what do you create? You actually create teamwork, you create context across different lines of business, and that helps your business scale as well. And the only way we're able to do that is to provide an amazing experience that allows people to easily learn, easily use, easily innovate, and then keep scaling, but scale in a way that's really a benefit for the whole business.
Right. And is there anything beyond tech talent shortage, like what which is driving low code adoption?
Yeah, I can start and then Marcus chime in, or I just think the talent today in the workforce, and I run a centralized tech org, but they don't want to wait in line for a centralized tech org to go fix something that's annoying them. And it could be those easy examples I mentioned. It could be something more complex. So there's a big thing around empowering your talent to digitize their own work. Two, very real in terms of relevant to the business outcomes a company is trying to drive, accelerate their digital transformation by leveraging and creating that partnership that Marcus just talked about. And then the third thing I would say is these low code, no code citizen development apps left unchecked, they just slow down the organization. And not one of them is maybe big enough to rise up, but 1,000 little boat anchors sprinkled across the organization start to dramatically impact the speed of innovation at the company, which is going to become an impediment to growth.
Yeah, and that's really the risk of not doing anything in regards to a low code initiative, right? Because people don't want to wait in line. People have options. They can go to a website, swipe a credit card, and be off to the races. But at the end of the day, the biggest cost to developing applications isn't the development, it's the maintenance, it's the support over time. And that's exactly what Chris is alluding to. You have 1,000 of these applications. All of a sudden, somebody shows up on Chris's door and says, "Oh, here you go, Chris. if you could take these and maintain these." Well, that's sort of the old platforms and the tiny apps, and kind of I can name legacy platforms of the past because this term now low code has been around for decades. But the reality is if you want to scale, you want to remove that shadow IT. You want to remove just people doing whatever they want. You have to react and collect the pieces later. Instead, partner, create the right framework, give them the right guardrails, ensure that the governance of your company, which by the way, I've never seen one size fits all for every company, is tailored to you. And so now if someone says, "Hey, I'm in there, I'm a citizen developer and I'm building," they're building the right way with the right visibility and the right model to really scale and support over time. That's how you get the capacity we talked about earlier, with the scale, and most importantly, the agility the business needs. Because that's why nobody wants to wait in line, is because as a business owner, as a manager, as a worker, I just need to get certain things done, and I can't wait in line, because that's how I support our customer, and they can't wait either.
Right. And if you look at this from another perspective, I would like to know, what are the biggest challenges for organizations right now that don't embrace low code?
Marcus, you want to take a shot and then I can add?
Yeah. And I think this is really what we were just talking about, right? This is, if you do not embrace low code, it's going to happen anyways. when I go and I talk to customers, some of our customers will say, we took a quick look. As far as we know right now, we have 12 different low code platforms. Why? Because one department went and chose this one, another department chose that one, maybe an individual chose this, and because people are getting that initial value, it starts to spread. Well, the job of sort of the organization at some point is, how can we scale this and have consistency for all of our employees? How can we get that level of speed and agility in a consistent and safe way? And that's really where I think platforms that provide the right guardrails, the right governance, and create a culture and a buy-in at the bottoms up level of how we innovate within our organization really helps matter.
Totally agree. And you hit on exactly what, Marcus, in that ignoring it mode, where point solutions crop up all over the place, creates security risk, creates tech debt. And I think, organizations really have three choices right now, but I think there's really only one. One is ignore it. And by the way, by fact, you're ignoring it already. Because if you're not embracing low code, no code in a scalable way, it's happening throughout your organization. Marcus talked about employees going online. They can provision something in a nanosecond. So ignoring it comes with risk of tech debt, security risk, all those other things. You can try and block it and saying, no, it's too risky for us. And that's a losing strategy, because employees will find their way to get stuff done because they have to get stuff done. And then the only logical choice left in my mind is to embrace it. We have to embrace it. And embrace it means scaling it. Embrace it means putting training programs around it. Embracing it means centralized tech does have a role. Things still have to be secure. It's not just off to the wild, wild west. So I think organizations have to embrace it. And those that do will start to see their digital transformation accelerate and their employees be happier.
And the idea of putting low-code tools in the hands of employees can be daunting for organizations. So where should they start to get off on the right footing and make the introduction of low-code a success?
So I definitely have an opinion here, and I think centralized technology organizations, like the ones I run, have to take a lead role. And they have to put in a framework that people can snap into, because it is a bit daunting, right? If you just put low code, no code, hey, it's like, I've never built an app in my life. What are you talking about? And I think it starts with saying, you have something you want to get done. You have something you want to automate or digitize. Have an intake mechanism. Very easy, on a portal, on mobile. Hey, I want to go build an app for this. And then the centralized tech org should have a very light governance and say, here's when we say yes, here's when we say no. And for us, just as an example, the no is only like, hey, we already have an app for that. Why don't we improve it? Let's not create duplicate apps. Or super sensitive data, which is under in a regulated environment, like the example Marcus. So you may want to partner with the centralized tech org. And then enabling or training your people, give them a learning path to get certified as a citizen developer. And then let them develop. But while they're developing, it can't be you're on your own. You have to have the ability, if you get stuck, to reach out to the professional developers, the centralized tech org, and be like, hey, I'm stuck here and there. And then moving it to what we in tech call production, or going live with it, as you will. People start using it, and making sure you have a robust mechanism to monitor adoption and usage. So you don't have apps out there that are sort of dying on the vine and things like that. And I think if it's done that way, it is the recipe to scale it. Marcus mentioned no two organizations are going to look exactly alike, but those building blocks, there's a high degree of pattern match in our customer base for those that are successful at doing this at scale.
Right. So before we wrap up, I would quickly like to know, like, what's next, and how do you see the low-code technology evolving over the next few years? And for the people who are thinking about it, where do you get started?
Marcus, you go first. I want to hear from a product point of view where things going next, and then I can chime in.
One of the realities that we've seen within enterprises is a collection of different technologies over the course of, especially last 10 years. Whether it's integration technologies, it's low code capabilities, no code, AI, ML. And what we really see is this powerful way to leverage those capabilities in an easier way, but not in silos. What is the outcome you're trying to create? And then apply the right technology, the right solution for what you need. Now, that's typically in today's kind of buzzword bingo of business. We refer to that as hyper automation. And we think that hyper automation will help accelerate low code adoption as long as we can bring the right tooling to to the people who are really trying to achieve that outcome, and create the right partnership model for our customers going forward, so that they can do that development as a team sport I mentioned earlier. And that's going to be on a trusted platform where you can get all of those capabilities and apply the right medicine for the right pain point, if you will. You have the guardrails and a governance framework that doesn't inhibit innovation, but ensures that it doesn't stop innovation by having something go rogue, or sensitive data going awry. And so it's that hyper automation practice that I think is coming. But I think, and I'll let Chris answer this, but I also can see a whole new world of innovations that are coming next to low code as well.
Yeah, I agree. And build on Marcus's point. By the way, we don't always agree. So it's good. One, death of the point solution approach to automation. Nobody has time for it anymore. You can't cobble together 6 different things to attack a business problem. And as Marcus mentioned, the need for apps and automation, you may have integration needs, RPA, workflow-based automation, virtual agent, mobile. You can't go trying to assemble 7 different point solutions to try and go get those things done. You need it all in one. So Gartner calls it hyper automation. I see in our customers automation centers of excellence, but very quickly eliminating all these point-based solutions to try and get to automation. 2, I would say that the platforms are going to get smarter and smarter. So whereas it may start with an employee saying, I have a need, I need to go digitize something, the platforms, as they get smarter with technologies like process mining, which we've incorporated into our platform as well, will start to tell the operators, the citizen developers, centralized tech organizations, operation department heads, what they need to go optimize, where the bottlenecks are, where they can improve cycle times, improve customer satisfaction, and applying AI and ML to every single app in the enterprise. So the platforms start telling the humans where to go next. The third thing I would say, a little bit farther out, but it's coming, generative AI. And that's where the platforms can start to do more and more, and think about sketching out, a Visio diagram. Here's the way I want a process to work. And then the platform generates the code for you, and you kind of finalize the last 10 to 15%. That's where I see things are going next. And I just think it will be sort of unthinkable that we used to approach digitization and automation without low code. And second, that we used to approach it across a variety of tools and not a platform-based approach.
Well, excellent. Thank you both for being with us today and sharing your insights, wisdom, and advice with everyone.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Victor. And for any of you out there, try going to developer.servicenow.com. I think it's an easy way to get started. We have tutorials. If you want to do just citizen development, you get an instance of ServiceNow. If you're more of a centralized IT function, we also have paths for you. It's a great and easy way to learn, great easy way to get started. And there's a community of hundreds of thousands of developers out there that you can reach out to and get any question answered that you may have.
Yeah, and with ServiceNow's new Rise Up program, building your own digital skills, the learning paths, the training that we just talked about, and in full transparency, I built my first app 8 months ago. Wasn't the most complicated thing, but I did build an app and it did go live here at ServiceNow.
Huge thanks to Chris, Marcus, and Victor for that very informative discussion. Remember to click on the pop-up to access the session, How and Why Stitch Fix develop their own open source low-code platform and what you can learn from them. That will begin shortly. Don't forget to network with the other attendees, of course, here at the low-code, no-code community using the community tab.
Okay, season 6. Oh, this will take forever. Or not. Do I just focus on when things don't work and not appreciate when they do? I love it when work actually works.
I just booked this parking spot, this desk, and this conference room. I'm filing status reports on an app that I made. I'm not even a coder, and it works. I like your bag.
When your digital solutions work, the world works. That's why the world works with ServiceNow.
All right, so welcome to the session, How and Why Stitch Fix develop their own open source low-code platform and what you can learn from them. Elijah Ben Izzy, data platform engineer of Stitch Fix, is going to talk to Dan Muse of VentureBeat about Stitch Fix's journey creating their own open source low-code platform and the impact it has made on the company.
Good morning. I'm Dan Muse, Managing Editor and Content Director at VentureBeat, and welcome to a Low Code, No Code Summit. In today's session, how and why Stitch Fix developed its own open source low code platform and what you can learn from it. We're thrilled to have Elijah Ben-Izzy from Stitch Fix with us today. And if you could just take a moment and introduce yourself and talk a bit about your role at Stitch Fix.
Yeah, so thanks, Dan. My name's Elijah. I've been at Stitch Fix now for about 3 years, and I work on the data platform team. So Stitch Fix hires a bunch of really brilliant data scientists to sort of help serve the customer well. And data scientists need tooling to help get their models out into production. So I help build that tooling. I've always been sort of fascinated in how to build tooling that can help bring software engineering and math and all that sort of to interact well together.
Stitch Fix is a well-known brand, and I have two daughters, so I was, of course, well aware of it. But could you just maybe take a minute and just talk about your company, your mission, and what you're trying to accomplish, sort of in a business case perspective?
Yeah, so our mission is to help people get dressed with confidence every day. We're building the global destination for personalized shopping, styling, and inspiration to support clients across all categories and occasions. We have a really highly differentiated approach to sort of fuse the human touch of expert stylists with the precision of advanced data science to enable us to deliver a highly personalized shopping experience. So I'm really excited by it. It's sort of, I've been a user of Stitch Fix. My wife's been a user of Stitch Fix for quite a while. So the reason I wanted to join.
How would you sort of break down low code versus no code? How are they similar and how are they different?
Yeah, so I think it's really the sort of audience that you're appealing to, trying to sort of help be more productive. So there's a spectrum, and one of the things I'm really excited about this is to talk about sort of how what we've done fits along in that. Because it might not be the traditional angle, but I think it's a really valuable angle for everyone to learn. So no code is, I got an introduction to sort of the no code world when I was young, building Lego Mindstorms. So I'd start like, you have all these blocks and they'd be sort of control flows. And then somebody who didn't know much about programming would sort of take visual blocks, figure out how to make this robot drive around the house. We'd like build the robot out of Legos. And that was wonderful. So that's something. So then that was like my first introduction to the code world. Then you've got things like low code. There's a huge amount of examples of this, but that was another sort of early introduction I had. So there's a tool called Logo that was like a little turtle running around the screen. I think a lot of people are probably familiar with this. But you'd write little instructions for it, right? So you're not programming the whole space of everything. You're sort of sticking your little piece in and plugging into more infrastructure, right? And oftentimes this involves a graphic user interface. Our case is that's not the sort of focus there that I'm going to be talking about, but it's really about being able to sort of provide code within bounds to adjust the business logic of your application, and then having that sort of harness the power of more powerful compute that the system is built.
Out and part of an initiative that decided maybe CIO or CTO down, or other times it's more organic and comes from bottom up and grows organically. In this case, which method? How did you enter Stitch Fix, and what problems were you looking to solve when you began the endeavor?
Yeah, so Stitch Fix, at least in the algorithms department, and we have sort of a fairly broad amount of engineering that we do. But in the algorithms department, when I started off, we have a really interesting methodology of approaching things. So the platform team was sort of a very small, lightweight, nimble team whose goal was to make the data scientists more productive. And largely, we ended up functioning as our own product manager, sort of building these internal tools. So the mandate to build a data platform to make the data scientists more productive came obviously from just the goals of the company and us all being aligned. But in terms of figuring out exactly what to build and the few projects that we've built that sort of fit into the bill that I want to talk about today, that was driven by us doing sort of close user research with our data scientists, observing their workflow, understanding exactly how they work, and figuring out the pieces that we should expose in code and the pieces that we should just give as part of the infrastructure.
Yeah, I think with low code, no code, a lot of the discussion around it has been almost implying that, the citizen developer can be anybody in the organization, and that coding will become, widespread. But in reality, who do you see as the audience for low code, no code? And at your company, who are the people that are taking advantage of this and are in a position to use low code?
Yeah. So again, I want to stress that the angle that we're coming at is slightly different. So in the broader industry, the goal is to get sort of less technical people to have control over very technical things, which I think is really exciting. And at Citrix, we have a few different ways to sort of expose things to the business side. But the piece that I'm really interested in, and sort of what I've made my career around, is sort of bridging the gap between people who are technical in the infrastructure and software world, people who are technical in the math and data science world, right? So we hire some incredibly brilliant data scientists, people with PhDs, people with sort of publications and years of experience who really contributed to the industry, help build our personalization engines. And they are amazing at this data science, but the more they have to focus on the software engineering aspect and learn that, the less they can end up focusing on the data science. So our goal is to take these people who are really technical in this one direction and make it so they can harness the power that we can give them of being sort of technical in everything. So the low code aspect comes in by having us figure out like what is the actual amount of code that they need to write to be able to solve the problems that they're really good at, and how do we give the rest of it to them?
So in this case, was it a case of wanting to have data scientists have access to developer tools, or was it also a combination of just a lack of sort of talent in the industry and needing to look in different places to fill that coding need?
I mean, it is always hard to find talent in the software industry. We've done a great job of that, I want to say. I have the people that I've worked with are amazing, but it's always going to be hard to hire for data scientists, hard to hire for software engineers, and especially hard to hire for both people who are both data scientists and software engineers. So we wanted to make sure, like to that first point you made, we want to make sure that everything's accessible, right? That people who might be more on the data science side of the spectrum, more sort of mathy and research inclined, could really actually build production quality systems.
Now, getting to the fun stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about your platform and how it functions and why you decided to go the open source route with it?
Yeah. So we have a few different machine learning platforms we built. We have a bunch of blog posts about it. You can check it out on our Stitch Fix blog called Multi-Threaded. But I can talk briefly about two of them. One of which is closed source and the other one's open source. So our internal machine learning platform, the idea is to make it really easy for a data scientist to get a model out into production. So again, going back to that notion of what they should write versus all the things they possibly could write, we found that the most important piece of writing a machine learning model was this function, right? This idea that you put data in, machine learning does some magic with it. I mean, more than just magic, but oftentimes we think about it as sort of like some magic, and then data comes out. And to make that safe, to make that reliable, to make sure we're building sort of well-built infrastructure, we built a system to enable them to do that. So what they do is they save a model, they give it to us, and then we have all these capabilities around it. So they can deploy a model to production in a microservice by pressing a button. They can run a model in batch over a large data set using Spark by pressing a button, and track all sorts of analyses and metrics around that. We ended up building it on top of a lot of the other infrastructure that we have. So there's all sorts of lower level data platform components, microservice-based infrastructure, stuff on top of Airflow, different sort of UI components. And we put them all together to make an all-encompassing machine learning platform so that now when a data scientist wants to get their model into production, they write a little Python code that represents their model, set up some configuration, press a button, and then it can automatically deploy every time that model trains. And that's the low code bit, right? The goal of this is to make it so that the two pieces of code they have to write is a little bit of configuration and actually writing their model and nothing around the infrastructure around it. It's sort of the goal we're always moving towards. So that's the closed source piece. The other thing that I built that I'm really excited about that we open sourced is a project called Hamilton. So the idea is, the thing we learned is that it's really hard to build sort of incredibly complex data flows for feature engineering. So if you're getting data in, you might have a bunch of different sources. You want to join it. You want to sort of mess around with it. do all sorts of experimental variants, do all sorts of configuration, and then end up saving it to another place, whether to serve in production or to examine later. That's a complicated problem. And everybody builds their own little system for that. It's a lot of code, it's a lot of sort of infrastructure, and ends up taking a lot of time to maintain. So at Stitch Fix, we had components of a system that was built to forecast the business, where they had this incredibly complex pipeline, right? We want to forecast signups, we want to forecast churn, we want to really make sure we can do the sort of proper financial planning. And that was something that they were kind of was buckling under the weight of its own complexity. So we came in, built this tool called Hamilton, where the idea is sort of each feature or each component you can write by writing a simple little Python function. That's where the low code comes in, right? Because you're just like focusing on a little Python function that you can write that declares its inputs, returns its outputs, and by writing enough of these, we can build it into sort of this whole complex pipeline. But all you have to think about is the bits of code itself, not the whole platform. So we've open sourced it. We've gotten great traction. It's kind of morphing into a sort of control plane for machine learning ETLs, ETLs like batch jobs. So a lot of people are using it to extract data from wherever they have, transform it, and then feed data to their production machine learning models.
I know in reading about what you've done, it was referenced to your two-layer API, and maybe you've already alluded to that, but it was a term I wasn't familiar with. Can you talk a little bit about how a two-layer API functions and why you need that?
Yeah, so the notion of a two-layer API gets at, I think, a problem that a lot of people have with this low-code piece, with this sort of notion of low code or notion of no code, right? These systems end up often working perfectly when it can do exactly what you want to. When there's something that's slightly different and you need to dig one layer down, you're out of luck. So the way we build these systems is we have a base layer that's an API that we refer to internally. This probably isn't quite as well documented, although we try to document it fairly well. And it's a little more fluid, but that's what we build off of. And then on top of that, there's a layer that we expose to the customer. So going back to that first example of the machine learning platform that we built internally, we've got the core machine learning platform where you want to save a model and put it out to production, and it's easy enough. But if there's some sort of assumption that you've made or some shape of a model that we don't necessarily support, you can use pieces of our platform, but also dig one level deeper. Right? We have all these other supported components helping build microservice, do distributed tracing, and everything that data scientists can use on their own, so that if they want to dig in, if the low-code piece isn't powerful enough for them, they can go one level deeper. And that's the notion of this two-layer API. We really want to make sure there's always this 80-20 concept that we have, where 80%, where like 80% of the data scientists will probably end up using the thing that you build, and 20% will have to build something more complicated. And we want to really empower the 80%, but not break the workflows of the 20% and leave them out to dry. So that's why we build these two-layer APIs, so that those who are sort of more sophisticated, more power users can really dig down deeper and build their own thing. But the others can take advantage of a more sort of low-code solution.
In terms of how you have structured your infrastructure, obviously today there are many options for how you can go, on-prem or public cloud, multi-cloud. Can you talk a little bit about that decision and, I guess how important the infrastructure is, to this platform?
Yeah. So, I mean, the two platforms I described, the sort of machine learning platform and then the feature engineering platform, are different. The machine learning platform is all deployed on the cloud. We use AWS. For the company the size of Stitch Fix, that's kind of what makes sense these days. I've worked at other companies where they do stuff on-prem, and it's a trade-off, obviously. There's a lot of complexity around that, but the cost of managing data centers and sort of the complexity of that just wasn't worth it. The open source platform called Hamilton, that is a library. So you can run it anywhere. We've seen it we deploy it on the cloud locally for our own use cases. We run it in batch jobs on AWS, but you can really do anything with it. I and we do a lot of development on our own laptops as well, right? So cloud is really important to us, but flexible. Nothing that's too nailed in there.
Well, you guys are doing this now and operational, but in sort of like polishing off your crystal ball and looking ahead at Stitch Fix, what's next on the roadmap, and where do you see this going, and sort of the next big thing for you guys?
Yeah, so with every platform that we build, well, there's something I like to say, that the half-life of code is like 2 to 4 years. So code almost never, if you're using the same code in 10 years, either somebody wrote something truly spectacular that is can see into the future, or it just or you're not moving fast enough. So we're looking at building new things, replacing, updating, upgrading. The open source platform we're going to continue contributing to. I think there's a large amount to grow, and there's a lot of sort of great user feedback coming back. So right now it works for just Python functions. And you can use Python to access a bunch of other things, but we're starting to think, what if we could add SQL transforms in there too? There's some really fun technologies, thinking like DuckDB, that sort of bridges the gap between Python and SQL, other data frame layers. We've been mainly focusing on pandas, but there's nothing in the framework that sticks to that. So there's like Polars and IBIS and all these sort of great frameworks that we could integrate. And we want it to be a little more general purpose and sort of a control plane for machine learning ETLs. Really sort of plug into all sort of upstream components and be the one-stop shop for that. And in terms of the internal piece, that is partially dependent on exactly what the business does. So there's always sort of business needs that come into it. But we're looking, one of the interesting things in sort of building a platform is seeing how your needs develop over time. So at first you build a few different things for your needs. So you find like your first customer, you build really up for them. And then you find a few more, and then you've built a platform that has a lot of different components to it. And then at some point we started seeing like, oh, this could probably be simplified. So we have a lot of capabilities. And I think one of the things we want to do is pare down the capabilities, see if we can keep the support layer, and using the 2-layer API is really valuable here, because that allows us to offer a lower surface area, which is lower maintenance, and then allows us to grow more. So we're sort of thinking internally about how to build sort of very clean platforms, make it so that whatever direction the business needs to go in, we can go and support that. And whatever type of models data scientists need to write, we can build that. We can build for them too. In terms of so I'm really excited about this. I think there's a long ways to go. I think the field of machine learning platforms is huge and just keeps growing. There are so many different types of things that people need to solve that nobody's going to build the all-in-one platform for that, at least not for a while. So.
And just sort of circling back to the comment you made about the sort of the business value and success in terms of maybe when you started out or just as the project developed, were there certain KPIs that you were looking to achieve, whether it was productivity or user experience, or how were you measuring success during the project?
Yeah, so as an internal platforms team, we have a few sort of key metrics that we think about. We have to split it though between sort of true data and anecdata, which is a term I like, because if you have 1 million customers, which Stitch Fix does, and these sort of external platform teams handle it, then you can measure it very specifically. If you have 100 customers, such as the 100 data scientists we work with, then you have to be a little qualitative in the way you measure, but we definitely can get good KPIs. So we're looking at what percentage of the services deployed at Stitch Fix use our platform, how many models are created a day, how many teams have ever used it, how many teams are currently using it, and we've got a bunch of dashboards. The goal is just keep that up and to the right until it hits about 100%, which is we're getting towards there. And then an anecdata, so thinking about how people like it, it's the big question that I want. There are two metrics that I can sort of want to get a pulse on. One is how much people just think of our team and our products when building their new data science application at Stitch Fix. So that's saying so our team's called the Model Lifecycle team. So they're like, oh, I want to get a model out. My goal is to make it so their first instinct is to say, let's talk to the model lifecycle team, or here's the documentation for the model lifecycle team's product. Let's get to building. And then the other thing that I think is really cool is when somebody asks a question about our product, other people jump in to answer it. So in like internal Slack channels, if I can get a healthy degree of people saying like, oh, how does this deployment mechanism work for the model lifecycle team? If other data scientists are jumping in, that shows that they care enough that they're sort of like net promoters of our internal tooling, and that that sort of like helps adoption. So those are the two things I'm looking at in terms of qualitative data.
And I guess just sort of as we look to the sort of the broader industry and what you would tell your peers if you were at the low code no code summit and grabbing coffee or out for drinking, someone said, oh, we're just beginning to deploy this. Are there lessons you learned and things you can share about, maybe not things that went wrong, but things that you didn't anticipate that you would pass on to a colleague?
Yeah, so the thing that I think is the most valuable is to live the life of your users. So really, like, the more you can put your head into the headspace of, in my case, a data scientist, but in your case, it could be whoever really, the more you can understand that, the more you can really watch their use case. And there are 100 different ways to figure that out. The happier you'll be and the happier they'll end up being, right? Because it's really easy to build something. I want to say most software engineers can just get up and like start building a platform. It's really easy to look at something and say, oh, this is going to be the right solution for me, and then just start pushing it. But it's really hard to build the right thing. And you can build 10 different wrong things before you build the right thing. And the way to get to the point where you're actually building the right thing is to live the life of your users, to sit down with them, to look over their shoulder, look over their screen virtually, to really understand their problems. You can even like question them or challenge them on the way they think about things to understand their workflow, because you want to get to the point where you're not prescribing, but you're truly building for sort of what they need, right? And you want to get one, and it doesn't suffice enough to get what they ask for, because they might be asking for something that doesn't actually bring the platform forward. You really need to think about what they need, and the only way to do that is to truly understand their workflow.
Well, thanks, Elijah. I just have one last question as we wrap up. Hamilton sounds like an exciting platform, and clearly you guys are making it work in some exciting ways. Can you talk a bit about what traction you're seeing with the platform as an open source tool?
Yeah, so aside from the obvious sort of adoption we've had inside Stitch Fix, it's still early stages. We open sourced it about a year ago and have been sort of doing some marketing, some conference talks, but not pushing it too much. We've gotten a decent amount of interest from the outside world. So we've got a few other companies are using it. We've got a bunch of people asking stuff on our Slack channels, 650 stars on GitHub. People open sort of issues every day where they're trying to do sort of a new thing. They're finding a new way to express feature transforms. And I'm really excited about it. The thing I love about working in this data platform space is I get to sit with people and sort of understand their problems, and really sort of live their workflow. And the more that I see from the outside world about Hamilton and the way they use it, the more I can take that and use that to build a better platform and to really understand the way that everybody works, both outside of Stitch Fix and inside it. So excited about the traction, excited about the progress so far. I think it's just sort of growing quickly.
Well, thanks for taking time to share what's happening at Stitch Fix and talk a little about low code. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. This was a blast.
So thank you so much to Elijah and Dan for that really interesting chat. To see the next session, the do's and don'ts of upskilling and scaling citizen developers across your organization, please remember to click the pop-up. And remember to join Elijah and the other speakers for the speaker Q&A roundtable that takes place at 12 noon Pacific. Okay, let's keep things moving along. So welcome to the session, the do's and don'ts of upskilling and scaling citizen developers across your organization. Please welcome Lenka Pinkott from Raiffeisen Bank Česká republika, Dali Ninkoev of PMI, Peter Schaefer of Track VIA, and Alia Mohammed of VentureBeat.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alia. I'm the Associate Managing Editor at VentureBeat. Welcome to Low Code, No Code Summit. This panel is the do's and don'ts of upskilling and scaling citizen developers across your org. Before we dig in, let's do a quick round of intros. Pete, would you like to start?
Good morning. My name is Pete Schaefer. I'm the Director of Information Security with Track VIA.
Hi, my name is Lenka Pinkott, and I'm Head of Agile Transformation at the Raiffeisen Bank Czech Republic. I'm also a big fan into new technologies, and I'm software engineer by education. So that's my connection to low code, no code.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dali Ninkovic. I'm Global Manager for PMI Citizen Developer, anything related to community engagement and raising the awareness of citizen development practice. I come with the low code and no code background, both technical and commercial, with over 25 years of experience.
So we'll just jump right in with the first question, which is the benefits of low code, no code platforms are well known, but security is one of the reasons why companies might be hesitant to use them or adopt them at a scale across enterprise. Why is that? Dali, could you start us off, please?
Of course. Like you said earlier, I mean, the benefits of low code, no code technology nowadays are just absolutely enormous and can't be ignored. And I may say that probably the adoption of low code and no code technology is not in question nowadays. It's the usage of the low code and no code technology. Let me elaborate on that a little bit. So essentially, a vast majority of the enterprises are now using low code or no code technology, but they are being used within the IT department scope rather than citizen development. Now, the concern comes from citizen development and security from two sides. One side would be the actual platform itself and the security around that, because most of the platforms nowadays are cloud-based. So there's still some skepticism, as I would say, in the enterprises on the adoption of these, because they're using usually a lot of open source libraries for the security, so people don't trust what they don't see. So they are using the code underneath anyway, and they before the companies adopt the low code or no code technology, they would probably go through some sort of rigorous process of identifying any sort of potential breaches in that, looking for the various certification on the platform in terms of security and kind of penetration testing. The real challenge comes from security when these platforms are released to citizen development nowadays. And the reason for that is because unless these programs or citizen development programs within the organization are governed in a proper way, then obviously the risk of exposing company data, IP, anything of value to the external world are becoming huge. So I guess throughout this discussion, we're going to come to the point where we identify what some of these risks can be and how they can be addressed. But in essence, that's in my opinion one of the biggest challenges now.
Yes, I would add that some of the concerns might be also related to governance in that sense, that when real citizen developers, people from organizations develop their applications, and these applications may influence how company is executing their processes, sometimes even really important processes, then there may be a risk of not having a proper business continuity plans in place. Because we create applications by ourselves, we work with them, and then when employees or teams change their jobs or even leave the company, there might not be anyone who would be able to fix it just in case anything goes wrong. And then some process execution activities can be put in risk.
And if I could just support some of those comments, I think Dolly hit it right on the head. There's two aspects. There's looking at it from the cloud platform perspective, and not to minimize that, but that's somewhat analogous to any other SaaS platform. Are the correct data protections in place, things of that nature? I think that's fairly straightforward. But his point of, and Lincoln touched on this as well, governance. How are we using the platform inside an organization? Again, a citizen developer is not an application developer by trade, and they're also not a security person by trade. So I may be getting ahead of myself, but what can we as platform providers do to help a citizen developer consider some of the security risks of using the platform? I think a simple example is just access control. Who has access to what types of data? And are we helping the citizen developer be aware that they may have very broad permissions that they've provided that may or may not be appropriate for their use case? All of that is to say, I think there's an educational component, but perhaps some in-product guidance could help as well. If we're abstracting application development, we need to perhaps abstract some of the security processes as well, but they're still there, just perhaps in a simplified perspective.
Great. Keeping that in mind, for companies looking to scale these platforms across the enterprise, where do you suggest they begin? What is the first step they should take? And Lenka, could you start us off on that question, please?
Yes, thank you for that. This is a really great question, because that's basically how you can introduce new technology in your organization and how you can make people familiar with that to set the right governance processes and, make it part of operations. So I will talk from my experience, and I would first recommend to let your company get familiar with the platform. Take your time, play, experiment, set up the right testing environment for that. So then when you fail and something doesn't work, you don't really impact anything that is, that you really need, some critical process, let's say. And once you form a group of people, once you form a community of people who exchange your experience and they see value of the platform, then take it to the next level. For instance, I can say that I made my own team, and these are definitely not software developers. I made my own team to create their first app, just to have their experience, hands-on experience, so that when we talk about the technology later in the organization, we can say with full credibility if it's easy, if it's difficult to work with that, what are the possible use cases. We even showcased our first examples on all staff meeting to the company. And then later on, we continued by organizing a hackathon, a 2-day event where employees could sign up their ideas and then with help of mentors to put them in practice. This event was a huge success, and it really showed the power of low-code, no-code platforms. By this, we created awareness, we brought know-how in the company, and we mobilized people in thinking that they can really use this technology to take their ideas and make them reality.
Great. Peter Georgali, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Lenka just touched on a very interesting point about the hackathons. And that's something that in my experience was also proved this enormous value, because organizations are sitting on this enormous pool of talent within the organization, and low-code and no-code technology enables this talent to kind of surface and be creative and innovative. And there is nobody better to kind of start these new initiatives in the organizations within, rather than people who are not by definition professional programmers, because professional programmers will typically do and deliver what business asks for them. Our business is sitting on these ideas, and they know best how to create and realize these ideas in real life. Now, in terms of starting, I fully agree with Lenka, and that's something that's been proven across the board when it comes to implementing citizen development practices across the organizations. You need to start small. You can't start on a large kind of scale and basically say all of a sudden we're all going to be citizen developers and we're going to have thousands of apps. It needs to start with this discovery and experimentation process, and usually within a single department, then you prove the value, then you polish out the little bits and pieces that are not working, see where you can improve, and then gradually roll it out to other departments until you form this complete practice and strategy around how the citizen development will grow across the organization and what benefits it can bring. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then to support that, I think both the speakers touched on this. The citizen development lifecycle, it has some phases and kind of provides a roadmap for how to scale the use of low code in an organization. And if I tie it back to security, in the discovery phase, you're just trying to get comfortable with the tool, doing a hackathon like Linka said. Experimentation is perhaps similar. Right around where you get into adoption, if you haven't already, I would really encourage citizen developers to deliberately engage with your IT or your security teams and say, hey, we've been exploring this low-code platform. We're really excited about it, but we want to make sure that we're using it in an appropriate manner. Help us understand some of the security and data implications and user access controls. Whatever those concerns or requirements are from your IT or security team, make sure you engage them at least by the adoption stage, if not a little bit earlier. But I also understand earlier, perhaps in discovery, you're just trying to get comfortable. Can this tool or approach solve my business problem? So perhaps there's a balance there. Maybe your company culture might affect or influence your timing of when you engage your IT or security teams. But certainly do so when you feel like you're comfortable with this, we really want to start using this, and let's make sure we're using the platform in an appropriate manner based on the type of data that we need to process and protect.
I just wanted to say that Pete is absolutely right. It really pays off if you engage your colleagues from IT or security soon enough, even in preparation of the hackathon, the way how we did, or we nominated them as mentors who were assisting teams who were working on their innovations. Because citizen development, like any other thing, it's supposed to bring business and IT people closer, not to set them apart. Each of these roles have different responsibilities and knowledge. So if we make them work together and share their experience, then we enable business innovation in easy and fast way, like low-code, no-code platforms are developed for. And at the same time, we provide enough information and assurance for IT specialists that the intention is not to create shadow IT, but basically just to help solve business issues faster.
There's nothing else on this one, then I'll go on to the next one. So keeping all of that in mind, what kind of guardrails or safety goggles can companies put in place to protect themselves, their data, and their people? And Dolly, would you start us off with this question, please?
Yeah, of course. Well, going back again to my experience and what I've seen in past life, and going back again on what Pete just mentioned about the adoption, that's the stage where, before the citizen development initiatives can be adopted within the organization, this is the stage where I would say organizations need to put a certain kind of governance strategy, or whether strategy is the right word or not, I'm not convinced, but part of the governance strategy is certainly one of the elements of that governance model that should be formed around the citizen development. And what I mean by that is there needs to be clear objectives defined, what the companies are trying to achieve with the citizen development, who your citizen development will be, what departments are going to be involved in this. The tools have to be vetted by the IT departments. How are you going to balance your citizen developers versus the daily job priorities? Because citizen developers are not, citizen development is not a role in my eyes. Citizen development is something that helps you do your job better. Not every application is suitable for citizen development. How are you going to make that selection of the applications, etc. Then once you have that buy-in on that top level, the strategy is clearly set. I'm a strong supporter of forming what I like to call a command center within the organization, something that's going to be combination of IT people, business people, stakeholders, somebody who's going to set these policies and guidelines, because obviously security around all the apps are going to be You need to make sure that the company policies and guidelines are set, that where the resources are going to come back, if CD needs some support, etc. The platform management that you're using, regular reporting to the stakeholders, so the program continues to form itself. Then you would also need to set certain enablement around the citizen development program in terms of tooling and support and training, continuous training and growing of the citizen development community, even community to a certain level. Obviously, citizen development on its own, I would strongly suggest, always needs to have an IT involved. IT should be involved in any citizen development initiative, not to the same capacity as involved in their daily jobs, but more in the advisory role to make sure that everything falls in place, that the software development lifecycle is followed with citizen development apps. And then, like I said, I would always, like I said, Lenka mentioned earlier, citizen development is a great, fantastic concept. And in reality, if executed properly, can bring enormous benefit and job satisfaction to people. But at the same time, it can very easily turn into the shadow IT if it's not governed properly. So I would always, before adoption of citizen development, I would definitely recommend embrace security first approach across the organization, make sure that the platform is validated and vetted by the IT. Most of the applications that citizen development that I've seen are going to be created on top of the existing data in the core systems like SAP, Oracle Financials, and things like that. So IT needs to make sure that the right access and correct access to the citizen developers is enabled for these APIs. And obviously, before these applications are rolled out, I would definitely recommend that companies need to implement some form of approval process in line with the IT standards and guidelines to ensure that all of these CD created apps meet all of these security standards and have continuation, kind of long lifespan and maintenance plans in place, etc., etc. So I know that sounded a bit too complex and too much, but I think it's very important to mention that there's a lot of things to consider before moving on to the next maturity stage in adopting citizen development within the organization.
Lenka, I think you've scaled some citizen development programs in a large organization. Perhaps you could add some additional context.
Well, I have to say that everything that Dali said, it was very extensive. I would just add a little thing. The practice that we follow is that we build smaller groups of people. We call them centers of expertise. We have global center of expertise for citizen development that takes care about global security policies that needs to be in place. And then we also try to set up local centers of expertise of local specialists who can help business teams or citizens in our local banks to implement the solutions properly. Because I believe that when it comes to citizen development and the original concept, which means you give really powerful tools in hands of people who can use them by themselves, then it's really critical to balance centralized decision-making or centralized governance versus enough freedom and empowerment to really use these tools for innovation. So if you make the rules too tough, you might discourage people to even try because they say, wow, I have a brilliant idea, but still I cannot really move forward. If you set the rules too loose, you are risking exactly, Pete, like you said, that, people who are not developers, they may underestimate some risks associated with their applications. Mm-hmm. So I think the key is really to find a way to create that balance. And for that, I would definitely recommend to use different types of tools to set up communities in your company, communities of people who can instantly exchange their points, ideas, questions, and you leverage that knowledge from individuals into this community so that they can check upon each other. Like, how did you solve this in your country? What did you do this? Does anyone have experience with that? Did it work? Did it fail? To create this collective knowledge. to implement it properly.
Yeah, thank you. And both of you, I think, made great points in terms of you need some kind of a center of competency or a group that is helping to provide some guidance for your citizen developer community. And I'm thinking in larger organizations, I think that very much makes sense. And I'm also thinking about what about in smaller organizations where maybe they're just not quite that, I'll just say, sophisticated in their overarching governance. But perhaps an element there that could help is education. How can a citizen developer, or I should say a small company who's wanting to use citizen development, who doesn't necessarily have some of the governance structures that we're talking about, still help their citizen developers understand the types of risk or the types of data that is being manipulated or the reasons that we even have some of these security controls? It's not uncommon for an end user to just think that security is an impediment to getting their job done. And once they have the freedom to use a citizen developer tool, may consciously or subconsciously just kind of put the security concerns to the side because they've been, like I said, an impediment. Perhaps there's an educational element there. I'm not sure if that's education within the platform or something we as vendors can do, or if it's more of the citizen development community. I'm just saying I think there is an educational component to help a citizen developer understand the basics of security and why it's needed. And while it may be overly burdensome in your organization, there's still a level of security that is in fact appropriate, even within a citizen development application that you're developing. I'm not sure of the exact answer there. I think that topic might need some more exploration, perhaps.
You're absolutely right, Pete. I fully agree with what both of you said. It will also depend on the industry where citizen developers are being born, because some of them are a bit more rigorous, like banking, government, justice systems and things like that. Whereas the smaller companies with not so, they may not necessarily have to go to this great expense that I mentioned earlier, in creating these governance strategies and centers of excellence, or whichever way you want to call it, I guess. But there's always, I think it's very important to always make people aware about the security risks that the citizen development can potentially cause and how they can be managed. And that comes through the education. And I fully agree. And we've seen this through people who have taken our courses at PMI about citizen development and how these risks are mitigated, how to be careful, how to, manage these risks. And but going back to Lenka's point, you always have to create that balance about not shutting down that innovation, because that's what citizen development is all about. If there are too many restrictions and too many kind of guardrails around the citizen development initiative within the organization, it will never work. You might get lots of apps, but they will be very much what business wants, what business needs, as opposed to creating that innovation element, I guess, when it comes to the talent pool. Yeah.
Great point. Balance, security, risk, innovation, speed of providing a solution. We use the word balance, and yet it's not necessarily an obvious way to achieve that balance. It's very much organizational or contextual specific, but it's a great word. The hard part is, how do you understand what that balance is and even get, I'll say, agreement on what that balance should be?
I think what might help here is when you look at applications. That's now a mix of words. So application of your application, right? So as long as you stay within the safe zone, for instance, application that you use within your own team, your department, you don't use any external data, and you don't impact any business important processes, you are more or less fine. And here, I would recommend to put your rules really on minimum, not to block people from their thinking and innovation. But further you go, for instance, when you need to use data either from external sources or even publish your data somewhere externally, or you touch the criticality of processes, then rules must be there. And I just wanted to share with you one example how innovation works. On this hackathon that I mentioned, we had there two prizes for two winning teams. And the one winner of the hackathon was a team who improved really, I have to say, painful internal process. And it was a very nice win. But then we had a winning team who won by voting by our employees who were part of the event. And surprisingly, it had nothing to do with improvement of processes or work with data. This winning team, they created application for engagement and for creating a place where people can exchange or sell things and donate to charity. So for ESG cause. And that was amazing because this type of applications, they would probably never make a list of IT priorities or business priorities. And this team, this winning team, they created it from within 1.5 days. And they were promised that it will go live. This is where we need to enable that innovation, not to use technology only to improve something that we did not figure out properly before, fix some data transfers, etc., but really give something in hands of people who have good ideas, but they cannot wait for priorities of funding because it's not business critical. But they have a great idea that can really improve culture and well-being of people in the organization. And for them, I would go for minimal rules. You have idea, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, we are out of time, but thank you so much for this amazing conversation and for participating in Low Code, No Code Summit.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to participate.
Thank you. It was great to be here.
Huge thanks to Lenka, Dali, Pete, and Aliyah for a really interesting chat. To see the next session, why adopting LC-NC tools enables an organization's citizen developers and makes skilled developers more valuable rather than replacing them, please remember to click on that pop-up. And remember to join Lenka and all the other speakers for the speaker Q&A roundtable that takes place at 12 noon Pacific.
Low-code and no-code platforms offer a great, fast way to develop low-risk applications. However, not everyone is going to automatically know who to work with on governance, ideas, risk, things like that. That's where we come in. We have a training program meant to lessen the stress and introduce guardrails for application development. Learn more today at pmi.org/citizen-developer.
Okay, so next up, we have a session, Why Adopting LC-NC Tools Enables Organizations, Citizen Developers, and Makes Skilled Developers More Valuable rather than replacing them. Please welcome Philip Lakin of No Code Ops, Jason Miller of Creatio, and Sri Krishna of VentureBeat to discuss how the right tools can allow citizens to take control of their digital strategy and design applications. And reduce IT support burden and remove IT bottleneck in workflows. Yes, literally all of that sounds magical.
Hello, everybody. I am Sri Krishna, an editor at VentureBeat, and in that capacity, I write about AI, machine learning, and data science. And today, I'm really excited to be talking about low-code, no-code with two experts in the industry. With us, we have Philip Lakin, founder of No Code Ops, and Jason Miller, head of pre-sales for the Americas at Creatio. Philip, Jason, welcome to the show. Now, why don't you introduce yourself a bit, Philip, and then Jason, I'll leave the floor to you.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. My name is Phil Blake, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of No Code Ops. We are a community and newsletter for operational professionals in the no-code space. About 9,000 strong, all marketing operations, sales operations, people operations folks that are using no-code in their day-to-day work, using a variety of different platforms. And then we've also built a infrastructure tool for no-code tools like Zapier and Make called Switchboard. That's us.
Thanks. And my name's Jason Miller. I am head of pre-sales at Creatio, as was mentioned. Now, Creatio is a no-code platform, previously known as BPM Online. And what we've done is we've used the power of no-code to help empower citizen developers and no-coders to accelerate some of the things that they're doing in business process automation, digital process flows, as well as sales, service, and marketing. You can find us in the Leaders Quadrant and many of your favorite analysts report, as well as top of the board in many of the no-code platform playbooks. So we're looking forward to the discussion today. Appreciate the time.
Great. Thank you both, gentlemen. And given that we have two very different perspectives on board here, I'd like to first start out with Philip, who's representing the local no-code community over here. So what has the technology meant in 2022?
Yeah, so my point of view here is that a lot of this stuff has been around for a long time, right? WYSIWYG's been around for a long time. No-code page builders have been around for a long time. I mean, as far as programming, as long as programming has been around, there's been new levels of abstracting things away, right, to make them easier and easier to work with. In fact, even like the early C programmers would be considered low code to their earlier counterparts, so they would be considered low coders to them. So it's just further and further levels of abstraction. A lot of no coders today are bigger on using the mouse and the keyboard, we like to say, right? So they're visually designed things, they're dragging and dropping, but they're creating really complex workflows, both internally in their businesses and externally to customer, facing parts of the business as well. So what no code means today is just the ability to move really fast and create something really custom with either a platform or a combination of platforms, or in congruence with other coded or legacy parts of someone's stack. So you can think of using no code for something as straightforward as creating an automation pipeline for when a customer does this, we want this type of notification to go to this type of account executive in this channel. And when they respond with a certain response, we want that to then ping our accounts payable team, whatever, right? So there's that type of straightforward actions and back-end workflows. But then things also get complex is, we want to build a part of our business that's a marketplace that is in relationship to our business. So we don't have developer talent because that's an ancillary part of our business, and the developers working on the core part of the technology offering of the business. So to build that talent marketplace that's really owned by the marketing department, we want to build that from scratch using no-code tools. So whether using something a little bit more white label, where you're just making some smaller decisions around customization, like using a platform like ShareTribe, or creating that completely from scratch using a platform like Bubble. So no-code is very much a grayscale. It's not just one size fits all. There's combinations of platforms, single platforms. There's white label. There's verticalized no-code for different verticals. There's internal and external facing. So lots of different shapes and sizes, but really helping non-technical people achieve things that were only previously achievable by very highly technical individuals and teams.
Thank you for that.
I think that's absolutely on point there, Philip. And I think you hit on a lot of great points. I think one of the things that we think about at Creatio is really a focus on driving that automation and pushing. People have talked about shift left for years, but pushing that back to the business, right? Folks who are closest to those business processes and folks that are very much in tune with how the business is operating. I think we all know that IT backlogs have been growing faster than ever. And obviously with that, there needs to be a new way to think about application development. And you talked about it. You talked about the ability to empower many of those folks that typically were never able to sit at the table when talking about application development. And to us, that's really what's helping drive this no-code revolution. And it's a little bit of a fallacy, and we'll talk about some of the myths here in a few minutes, but it's a little bit of a fallacy that says no code can't sit in and around legacy applications, and it can't be part of your application development lifecycle. And I know as we go through the discussion today, we're going to hit on some of those myths, but I think you absolutely defined it well, that it's that new way of looking at how people are doing application development to help accelerate time to market, drive lower total cost of ownership, and get to ROI much faster.
Mm-hmm. Right, Jason. That was an interesting point you brought there. And much like with any technology that kind of gains prominence, there's a lot of myth that come around concerning how it's going to be used, the impact it's going to have. Could you, elaborate on that point a bit more?
Yeah. So, look, there's always concerns with how is this stuff going to be used? Like, you're giving very powerful tools to people with little to no background or education in the software development life cycle, in bringing technical products to life, in product management, right? Like we are still in the very early days of this version of no code, developing things like best practices and governance and centers of excellence, and this is all very new to this industry, or this version of the industry as it's evolved in no code. But look, I think some of the myths are, it is one size fits all. Like we either, it's all no code or it's not. And we've seen that that's not true with hybrid approaches, with folks saying, hey, our developers are going to work on this technical part, this like highly technical part of our infrastructure, right? Maybe we have on the next level up like some Salesforce admins bringing some of that event data in from our application and baking that into our CRM. But even Salesforce has become too clunky for a lot of folks to use, and you have to go through an admin and get permission and be on a roadmap. Like no coders do not like roadmaps or being on other people's roadmaps, so creating our own roadmaps, right? And so, the way to think about it is it's like this grayscale of you have the highly technical product, you have the kind of mid-tier technical products like Salesforce, where still a lot of technical things going on, but it takes a lot of time to build and get things right. And then the things that sit on top of that, department by department, where people want their own views of their data without going to someone centrally. I think Jason nailed it, where the power of no code is that the people in the departments who are closest to the problems, that care the most about them, that are the most incentivized to solve these things, that have the most intimate knowledge about what's actually happening on the ground, are finally empowered to fix these problems in the way that they and their direct stakeholders want and need, we're seeing something very similar happen with no coders that happened with data a few years back, where it used to be every team had to rely on a central data team to get all the data they wanted. They would have to sit in this huge queue to get the dashboards they wanted. And then that got decentralized to the point where every person had, every team had someone on their team that was a data person that could pull those reports from a central BI function. So they weren't so reliant on a central BI team. They had like their own ambassador. And I think the same thing is happening with no code for all these teams. That's why you hear terms now like marketing ops, sales ops, people ops. So I just wanted to echo that, Jason. I just love that point that the people closest to the problem finally get to fix it.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing, and I think that's when we're talking about myths about no code. There's a bunch of them, right? And it's around whether or not we should empower the business, right? In the past, that's always been a very faux pas thing. The ability to create shadow IT and lose control from a governance standpoint has always been some of the IT group's biggest fears. I think with no code platforms, the beauty of it is it's no longer in that situation. These enterprise grade tools, Increatio being one of them, is we give that governance and control to the IT groups that they've been longing for, that so they can empower the business that in such a way that it doesn't drive this wild west. And it allows that fusion team approach to have both no coders and professional developers sit together. We know that there's just not enough developers out there. So having these fusion teams work together to solve problems, it's just like when we started putting agile teams together. This is that next iteration, that next phase on how teams are going to work together to solve problems using a more modern digital approach.
Mm-hmm. Right. And building on to that a bit more, Jason, and so what would you say is the benefit at the end of the day by getting everybody, both low coders and developers, onto one single platform?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And Jason and I know just from our previous chats, we have very different opinions here, which I'm so excited to jam on. So, my thinking here is that, look, if you can get everyone on the same platform, amazing, right? But what we've seen a lot of from our, in growing, hyper growth teams or large enterprise companies, teams move independently of each other, and teams don't want to wait for other teams to adopt technology, right? If you're the business leader that's waiting to get sign off from every other team to finally solve your on the ground needs, you're typically not around at that company long enough to see that come to fruition, right? Because people need results. And so, depending on how healthy or how fast a company can move, sure, people can get aligned around all being on one platform. Or if the department itself is big enough, they can definitely get on a platform. But when a company is large enough or moving fast enough where they're just look, our department just needs a solution and it's got to pass snuff on the IT and security front, but we're not waiting for the other folks. We just got to build this thing, and then maybe it lands and expands, great. But that's the folks that we tend to work with a lot, and our verticalized functions that we typically work with at No Code Ops. And so this is really why our thinking is that the future of no code in some cases will be a lot of folks, at a company using one single platform to develop things on. But there's another huge segment of the population that different teams are going to be using a combination of different tools, and they're going to have different needs. Just like project management looks different in marketing than it looks in sales, right? So they have different tools that are more verticalized to their needs. Same thing happens with no code. Some teams, at the same company, one team might really love using Zapier, another team might really love using Make. One team might want to build their CRM in Creatio because they have very specific needs, when it touches certain legacy SaaS, and they have certain, things that they need to do from a governance perspective. Another team like marketing, when just doing some marketing analytics and some, more light CRM stuff, might want to use Airtable. And we see that all the time where different folks, different companies do have different needs that they want to go by. Now, in a perfect world, everyone would just be on the same system and that would be great. But even when that's the case, no coders do want modularity, is what we find, where they do want to be able to take certain things in and put certain things out and not rely all on one system for all of their needs, because then they're just completely beholden to the updates from that, from that company. So that's just like the big thinking why we were so interested in not building another, platform in the no-code space with Switchboard. It's why we really focus on the infrastructure. It's like, how do you think about governance and getting everyone on one platform when everyone's on different platforms? And that's why we thought about, okay, how do we productize governance through infrastructure? But that's my hot take.
Yeah, and Philip, you're right, because obviously we at Creatio, and I think about it a little bit differently, right? Because you just mentioned a lot of great reasons why you would want to be on multiple platforms. I also think that those are the exact same reasons why you'd want to be more towards a single platform. And we think about it from a governance standpoint. Obviously, managing governance across a platform is much easier to do than trying to manage governance and change control across 5, 6, 7, 10, 20 different platforms. Right. And a lot of times it's just easier if you've got economies of scale. It's easier to put the people necessary in place to manage governance in a single platform versus multiple. That's kind of topic one. Topic two is it's great, but if you think about it, there's other problems with these multiple platform ideas. You have to build integrations. You have to be able to sync data across these multiple platforms. It's much easier to do that in a single platform than it is 5, 6, 7. Now, I agree. There is probably no single platform that's right for every single person. But to your point, modularity, the ability to build containers, the ability to use small blocks and segments to build upon each other, to build applications, that's where we're going at Creatio and building a modular approach. Matter of fact, we're launching our composable architecture as part of our next release. You're going to see more and more platforms moving towards this approach so that you can do these small pieces without impacting the larger organization. And to me, that's why one platform makes sense. You don't have to use every bit of the platform, but having a platform that gives you that flexibility to manage the small things quickly and easily, as well as the really big, heavy gorillas that are in the room, ultimately, I think is the right answer. And I'll go one step further. Having a platform that allows both the professional developers who like to code as well as the no coders sitting in the same place makes it move even faster. You can have developers go out and develop in an IDE where they're comfortable and they've been working forever, but ultimately you either have a separate application that you then need to integrate to, or you can give them the ability to take that code that they've built in that IDE, their favorite IDE, and bring it back into a no-code platform to where they can all work together and achieve outcomes. That's what we're focused on at Creatio, and that's why we think more of a one-platform approach may make the most sense for most enterprises.
And I'll add this here, right? Such good points. Like, there are things that you get in a single platform approach with no code that you just can't today, right? With a multi-platform approach, seeing how everything's unfolding from it, from an IT and development standpoint, being able to productize certain policies, being able to track what's being done by who and what changes are affecting what, and dependency mapping, right? Like that, if I were to have my cake and eat it too, and like this is very much why we were excited to get into the business of infrastructure that we're getting into, is that like, what does the future look like if you can have your cake and eat it too, right? Where you can be on 3 or 4 different platforms, so everyone gets the tools they want to use. Say their CRM is Creatio, their integrator is Zapier, they're like ad hoc smaller things, for certain areas, or an Airtable, right? Like that's just how the business unfolded and wanted to work. If that could happen in that kind of modular capacity, where there's still a certain level of infrastructure over top of it, where you can get that observability and reliability piece that's missing from today's market of just, a bunch of people using a bunch of different tools and no one knows what's going on, and somebody changes a field in, an Airtable or Creatio and it breaks something, right? Like that is the future that I and the team are pushing for. Like that is very much what I want to see. So TLDR, what y'all are doing at Creatio with just like the different containers and structures, like you are setting the benchmark for what we want to do for a multi-platform approach. So yeah, it's really exciting to see.
That's great, gentlemen. So we have talked a lot about how low code can be used, but is there any real example or use cases that either one of you can give on how your customers are using it as things stand. Hello?
Yeah, for sure. Jason, do you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, sure. So Creatio, we're proud of a lot of our customers, but one in particular stands out in my mind, and that's the government of Israel. So we worked with our partner Nativity of Israel, and what they've done is they've implemented, call it a new way for the government, the Ministry of Finance, the Transportation Department to take in all of the permitting and all of the review process, and think of all that workflow automation for every time you need to cut through a piece of red tape. They've got over 4,000 users that are using this portal every single day to do submissions, work requests, look at the status of their proposals, get things reviewed by the government. And it's amazing because through the net power of no code, we've not only been able to accommodate that volume and that traffic coming through. Think about the Israeli government. We were able to literally take a language that normally runs from left to right in pick a language and run it from right to left in Hebrew, because that's the way they operate. And we were able to do that with our partner in really no time at all. And it's an amazing thing. There's some videos out there. I'd encourage you to go find them. But absolutely, it's probably one of our favorite use cases. Philip, how about you?
Well, sorry, I have an interesting question for that as someone who used to work for an Israeli-based rideshare company called Get. In your CRM that you built for the government in Israel, do their chevrons of stages in the CRM go right to left also?
Yes, they do.
That is so cool. Sorry, total nerd moment on my end. I love that.
It's amazing the things we take for granted because you know, we're in the US or we're in India or we're wherever, and we're so used to reading things from left to right. But you think a lot of countries, top to bottom, right to left. Try to code that. It's almost impossible to think about it and handle with permeation.
That is so rad. For us, one of our earliest customers on the switchboard side of things, they were in the no code ops community. They used Switchboard from an early on standpoint. So Switchboard started out as a monitoring platform and error monitoring, incident response for Zapier and Make, the two largest no code integration platforms. And so On Deck, the education company, used us to monitor their Zaps. And so On Deck's part of this new breed of company that they built almost all of their infrastructure with no code, almost all of it. And so they had thousands of Zaps running that needed monitoring. And so, we had worked with them on that and made sure the right person on the right team found out when something, went wrong. But what was really interesting for us was when working with them as an early design partner for the next version of our product that we're in the middle of building right now, where they really pushed us on an area that I didn't think was going to be that interesting, but ended up being really interesting for no coders in terms of scalability, which was documentation. Like documentations needed to scale this stuff, and especially in a cross application manner where they're using Airtable and Zapier and a bunch of platforms tied together. And they were they're spending hours every week manually documenting stuff and drawing it out in Miro boards and creating Notion docs and keeping them updated. And so they were part of the folks that really pushed us for the second version of our product, where monitoring is moving from the product to more so being a feature of what we do. And we're starting to now do things like automatic documentation, process mapping. And what we're starting to already see in our early experiments is that no coders, and I don't know how much coders I think plan a little bit more before they build. No coders is very much build and then look at how it went. We're very much build first, think later a little bit. At least I am. That's when I know code, and that's how a lot of our customers for sure are. And so we had to adjust how this worked for them. And so that's been really exciting to see how On Deck is using our technology to build first, document next, but keep it scalable and keep it observable. So that's just been super exciting to be a part of a company that literally built from the ground up, all the way through a huge Series A, thousands of users, hundreds of employees, and almost everybody at the company and every seat is trained to some level as a citizen developer. Like that, it's pretty cool to be a part of their journey from an infrastructure standpoint.
Great, gentlemen. Thank you for sharing those impressive case studies. And I bet listening to that, a lot of our viewers would like to get in touch with you. So, Philip and Jason, what would be the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, for us, so I'm super active on Twitter, so at Philip Lakin, Philip with one L. And then for more info on joining our community, our newsletter, both are free. It's nocodeops.com. And then for more information on our tool, our infrastructure platform, it's runswitchboard.com.
Yeah, and for myself, I'm pretty active on Instagram at No Code Evangelist. You can also find me on LinkedIn. And then from a Creatio standpoint, I do encourage you to go download a copy of the No Code Playbook. That's available for free on the Creatio website. We didn't even have time to talk about that today.
It's so good.
Catherine and Burley did an amazing job writing that book. You can also find out more information at www.creatio.com. Do appreciate the time today. Philip, this was awesome. I appreciate it.
Jason, great jamming. And Sri, thanks so much. And the whole team at VentureBeat, just so jazzed to be a part of this.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. It's been a pleasure.
All right, so thanks to Philip and Jason and Sri for a really impactful conversation. A lot of great takeaways there. We're going on to the last session. It's building enterprise apps and automating workflows rapidly, but successfully. Click on that pop-up and you'll access that session right away. Okay, so it's now time for the last but surely not the least session of today's Low Code and No Code Summit. Pavel Zamudio Ramirez, Chief Customer Officer of Appian, and Ramesh Sundaresan, VP of IT and Divisional CIO of Rider System, discuss everything you need to know related to low-code platforms, maximizing resources, and dramatically improving your business results.
Hi, Pavel Zamudio Ramirez, Chief Customer Officer in Appian.
Hi, I'm Ramesh Sundaresan. I'm the Divisional CIO at Rider System.
Excellent. So thank you, Ramesh, for being here with me today. I'm looking forward to our conversation. And why don't we get onto it? So today, most companies are experiencing difficulties, at least in two main territories. One of them is the economy. High inflation, low growth rates, among other things, are making things difficult for companies. And on the other hand, there is also significant demand for IT skills and low supply. Now, in the context of that background, what do you think are the crucial factors for companies to be able to innovate?
Yeah, as a technology leader and leaders, we are facing very difficult challenge ahead. As you rightly pointed out, high inflation, talent, expensive talent, and very less talent out there in the market, supply chain constraints, to name a few. With these challenges, we have to enable the business leaders to drive profitable growth, right? That's the challenge. To do that, as IT leaders, we need to do a couple of things and be mindful of it. Number one is spend where it has direct impact on the end customer, because there's always things that we can do that is indirectly impacting the customer, but try to see what has direct impact to the customer. And number two, invest in the areas that help the organization to be nimble and adaptive to changing business needs. Let it be from an infrastructure perspective, cloud migration, or enabling self-service to our business, enabling them with faster processes and simpler and being more agile. Invest in some transformation efforts, that would make the organization emerge stronger from a possible economic downturn, right? And then finally, talent, right? How can we use the talent that we have more effectively? I mean, let it be, think outside of the box, part-time versus full-time, in-house versus outsourcing, location, let it be work hours, etc. I mean, how do we use it more effectively? And be aggressive in getting, retaining, and retraining, the talent, right? So all these things, are extremely important, to in this market. And all these things will work only if we keep the day-to-day operations, running well. Because if we are all fighting fires every day, people will not have time to innovate, right? So these are some of the things that I think we should be doing as technology leaders.
Absolutely, yeah. I like your emphasis on profitable growth. I think today, if we see what markets are expecting, stakeholders, I think employees and so forth, is that technology companies take the lead on driving growth, yes, but also delivering at the bottom line. From my perspective, I know that we see low code as a critical element to enable profitable growth, among other things, because the use of a platform that allows you to create applications fast and get people trained fast on the technology are key differentiators that can help companies navigate these critical environments.
Yeah.
Excellent. So let me then connect this notion of innovation and competition. Many of our companies want to actually leap ahead. The dynamics of competition are such that they require companies to be constantly looking for what is the next way to compete. So what has Ryder accomplished in these areas using low-code technology, and what impact have you seen in the business?
As you pointed out, Pavel, disruption is happening at a much, much faster rate, like in every industry. I mean, I'm sure you are facing the same thing, like in the industry that you are in. And Ryder is no different. We are experiencing the same thing. Capability is no longer a question. I mean, can you do it is no longer a question. How fast can you do it, right? Unlike few years ago, business does not have years to try out an idea and try out a new product. We need something fast, something quick, minimum viable product out the door pretty fast so they can try and fail fast, right? So with that, we are transforming our way of working, from a waterfall to kind of an agile, model, because that is very critical. Transforming the application teams that is centered around technology to product teams where business drives what the teams do. That's critical. IT is no longer a black box. It's very transparent to what we are doing, right? So that's the first piece. But the process is just one piece of the puzzle, right? That's where the low-code platforms come in. Like now, we use platforms like Appian, Salesforce, to achieve the speed to market that the business is expecting, from the technology teams that reports into me. Other thing is it's very difficult to kind of think small, because normally, like when we get into a process re-engineering or a project, it's like, okay, ends up boiling the ocean, right? Like, what I've seen is starting small, limiting what we are doing, getting that out the door, proving it, getting the buy-in, and then we can incrementally make more and more changes to it and make it robust. And IT can come up with a very good idea, but if business is not on board and they are not adapting, that whole innovative idea will fail, right? So I think that using the new processes and thinking small and then evolving from a minimum viable product, and combination with using a low-code platform, I think that's the way that we can I think be successful in this competitive environment.
Yeah, I like your emphasis on the issue of speed and the interaction between IT and the business, right? I talk to customers often and say, look, for me, the critical issue is small, quick steps, and maybe big dreams at the same time. But the critical part is quick steps, because that allows you to learn. You said maybe fail quickly, but certainly learn quickly, And the connection you make about low code and agile. My take is that when agile was invented, it was with high code, and it was actually a major step forward. But agile today with low code is like a different type of movie. It's a fast-paced movie for sure, where the difference between taking hours to get back to the business and say, how does this look? Does this connect to the business need? As opposed to weeks or months, makes a huge difference. So
You're right.
The 21st century version of agile is like nothing like what we saw with high code.
You're right, Pavel. Right, the speed at which this combination is allowing us to move. I don't know what we could have done without those two, right? The agile methodology transformation and the low code, no code. I can't imagine the way that we were operating, and we would become irrelevant if we did not have these new processes and new tools.
Nice, yeah, excellent. So we've talked about technology and innovation. Let's talk about the human factor. So what lessons has Ryder learned about change management from a people perspective?
Oh, that's a good one, right? Because I always say there's like between people, process, and technology, the biggest challenge is with people. Technology and process, yeah, there are challenges, but people is where where the process and technology breaks. So I mean, human nature is to resist change, especially when you don't know what to expect, right? I believe that any change that we make, if it is explained in advance, what is in it for the consumer, for the user, I think the change would be more successful. And I'll give you an example that on the business side that Ryder embarked on. We were in the process of modernizing our shops, right? And technology is a small piece of it, right? It's an enabler, but the business process in our shops were completely re-engineered. Of course, when you don't explain what your intentions are, and when you just say shop modernization, the shops might think that there might be a negative impact, right? And there might be resistance to that change. But when our business leaders communicated the intent to the technician, which is, hey, the goal is to take the administrative work out of your hands and enable you, the technicians, to do what you are good at, which is repairing the truck. We got all the support that we needed, and it was successful. So I think we need to communicate why and what is in it for them. I think that's the key. And I mean, I have, again, in the agile transformation, the same thing on the IT side, right? To transform a team which has a mindset of technology focus, and you move them into an agile mindset and change the way of thinking. If you don't communicate and tell them what is in it for them, okay, you don't have to juggle multiple priorities. There will be one high priority. There will not be 20 high priorities, right? You'll be spending less time in meetings, right? So when you tell them what is in it for them, I think they will. The change management, I think, will be a success. And then once you implement the change, I think there should be a feedback mechanism, right? So as long as the consumers and the users and our team hear what is in it for them, and then they have the confidence that their voices are heard, I think we will have a very successful change management. And wherever we have failed to do these two, we have struggled.
Yeah, I'm with you. People is often the most difficult part to change, right? I remember talking to customers about this and say, yeah, look, most likely you need to change in significant ways your technology stack. But even if you had a magic wand and that changing immediately, the organization may not be much more efficient, right? If people don't change the way they work, the way they collaborate. And Agile in the 21st century is a good illustration of that, right? It's like, you cannot run Agile if the product owner doesn't come and work with the team, right? They have to be able to spend the time and collaborate in new ways. And that is often the change. But I like your emphasis on highlighting the benefits for the individuals, the teams, the organization. That sounds great. I have the notion that one of the perhaps more compelling components of what new technologies like low code bring into the table is that they will allow technology teams to become a lot more involved in defining a strategy and implementing a strategy. So moving from order takers to co-creators of a strategy is a change of identity for IT organizations. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Yes, it is. Low code also enables Pavel the inner workings between the technology team and the business, right? And in the past, business would. It's a black box. IT is a black box. Business provides a request and IT does something and then spits out something that we think the business needs. Now the business is right there within the agile team, with looking at the product immediately, and they don't have to wait for months to kind of see it. So, and then they can immediately tweak it. So I think it's helping multiple ways, both on the business side and the IT side.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. It's the real power of co-creation, business and technology. Excellent. Now, many companies are struggling today because of supply chain issues. Now, Ryder being a leader in the commercial truck rentals is actually part of the supply chain. But I want to ask you, how have you been affected and what are you doing to manage chain supply issues?
So before I get to that answer, I want to kind of chime in a little bit on rider and the perception of rider in the market, right? You said rental company. Yes, of course. We did start the truck rental company, as a truck rental company in 1933. Next year will be our 90th year. And we are having the best year in history, and not many companies can say that. We touch many products that the consumers have and rely on every day. Let it be the coffee that you make, or smartphones in your hands, or clothes, or cars you drive, laptop, the desk that you're using today. The chances someone at Rider not touch them. So we are much more than a rental company, but we did start as a rental company. So let me jump into the question on the supply chain issues. This post-COVID world, it continues to drive significant complexity into the supply chain. Labor, drivers, and warehouse workers. It is improving, but it is still a challenge, right? Holding on to the talent, like what we talked about, continues to be a challenge. When raw material shortages to manufacture electronics or automobiles, it's continuing to impact supply chains. And it's getting better, but it's still a problem. The port availability and capacity for overseas suppliers, reliability of overseas suppliers is continuing to be the challenge. This now economy, which is the new normal, and then combine that with the rising consumer expectation of near immediate delivery through e-commerce channels, it's again increases the challenges that we have. And I think for a company like Rider, that's where I think we fit in very well, right? Because we have that flexibility of our products and combining them to address the unique needs of the customer. We have Powell supply chain which provides a comprehensive supply chain solution in warehouses, robotics and advanced automation, transportation management, e-commerce fulfillment, and then on the dedicated services, it provides our customers with leasing and maintenance capabilities with most professional drivers in the industry. And then you have fleet management solutions, which my team manages the IT systems for full service leasing, contract maintenance, and as well as commercial truck rentals across virtually every industry, right? So I think that what positions us well in this challenge we have with supply chain is we can mix and match products and provide the optimum solution to our customer. And we are very well aware of there are some gaps also, right, in the products that we have, and we do close some of them with M&A activity, right? So and this is in the press, now you might have seen Rider Last Mile, big and bulky items like exercise equipments and furnitures, and Rider e-commerce by Whiplash. That's a recent acquisition, and recently we also acquired Baton, which is a logistics platform, and we believe that it will lead the innovation and development of next generation customer facing technologies at Rider. So I think the diverse nature of our product and the ease at which we can combine those products to solve the challenges that our customers have, I think that's how I think Rider is uniquely positioned and help the customers to get over the supply chain issues.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to hear you speak about the evolution of the company and how at the end you have to manage flexibility, flexibility on what assets you use to serve what businesses, right? From our perspective, I think that is actually the challenge for many companies, is how to better utilize their assets in the globe and how to reconfigure as needed. This is one of the reasons, for example, we invested in the creation of extension of our platform to include process mining, because we believe that in addition to helping customers build applications, one one of the key questions is which applications, how do you actually use your assets better? And process mining is a way for companies to identify where are the leakages, where are the waste, where is waste, and how can you reduce that to increase the efficiency in which the whole operation works. Sounds great. And so let me move into another territory that I think will be of interest, which is how do we position projects to the companies? How do we pitch to the financial officer? What's your general take about how to present proposals?
You mean the chief finance officer, right? So to request funding, I think that if I understand your question. So it's always going to be a challenging discussion, like now when you are asking for investment, especially when the economic conditions, like what we started this discussion, if the economic conditions are tight. What has worked for me, again, is look through the eyes of your customers, right? You go to the CFO, you explain what the investment means to the end customer and the business. We often in technology, we talk about these cool things, which we know will help the business. But when we present it, we talk about those cool technology and focus on the technology instead of how this cool technology is going to help our customers, right? So I think that connection needs to be made, and if the connection is made, I'm sure that you will have the approval from the CFO. Second is some of these initiatives, they cannot be directly connected to the customer, right? As most of them can, but some of them not can. For example, as I pointed out, we are going through this agile transformation, right? And then it needs some funding, right? And to change the technology teams from thinking, technology and applications to products and embed the business in it and changing the operating model, right? So how did we convince the CFO? So we need to highlight, the speed of delivery and the success and the data behind it, and how to reduce the project management waste and showcasing the IT collaboration and the time and the money saved, right? And the transparency that the business is going to get, right? And finally, if we believe that there is going to be efficiency, then we should make the necessary cuts in our budget, right? As to make the CFO's approval easier. I mean, if we believe it, right? We cannot go there and ask, okay, there's going to be efficiency, and by the way, I'm going to keep the same amount of budget. So if we believe strongly, I think we need to do our part too. So these two things, connecting to the customer wherever possible, looking at it through the eyes of the customer, that has helped me a lot. And then data and showing that to the CFO, that has helped. I think after all these things, I think consistency is the key, right? We need to get the trust of the executives and in this case CFO. End of the day, CFO is going to trust us as a technology leaders to do the best for the organization, and so do what we say we would do, and if there is a miss, explain and tell him how we are going to prevent it from happening, him or her, how to prevent it from happening again, right? I think with these economic challenges ahead, a CFO's job is not going to get any easier. And it's going to make our job much more difficult to get approval for these investments. So I think we need to be in the lockstep, with the CFO and help the organization emerge even stronger from a possible economic downturn.
Yeah. I like your take, Ramesh. I think that this notion of investments that help the business keep the focus on the ultimate impact is a great component of how to present projects. Often in the past, technology has been perceived as an ever-increasing corporate tax, so to speak, right? It's like, but now we can connect a lot better. What are the outputs that the projects will deliver, and make sure that we have clarity about that line of sight, and then be ready to deliver the savings or the improvements and act accordingly, right? That will help financial officers balance their books, which are under a lot of pressure today. Yep. Excellent. So let me get to I think one last question. We've talked about technology. We've talked about the interactions between IT and the business, and we talked about how to approve investment decisions and the sort. What do you have any last piece of advice for our audience today, Ramesh?
I think end of the day, like, from a technology perspective, our technology is embedded in every facets of the business now, right? You take any business process changes that happens. It is very rare to see that there is no technology component. So it's extremely important for us to continue doing what we are good at, which is our day-to-day operations, right? We can't fail there, because if there is fire, like, there is no strategy, right? That's number one. So stabilize, number one, what you're doing, do well. And you need to enable your team to spend more time on these major strategic initiatives. That's where I think we can help contribute more to the business and help the business leaders to achieve the business goals. For that, we have to free our team from day-to-day monotonous work. That's number one. And number two, we need to bring efficiency into the day-to-day operations, like what we talked about, agile transformation and low-code, using low-code platforms, so that we can develop things quickly, develop products quickly that will enable our business to meet the challenges that they have in today's market conditions.
Yeah, I like everything you said. I totally agree. This notion of running the business well, but then collaborating with between IT and the business to reinvent what is needed and do that at a speed. Low code is one way to do that, but certainly aim for rapid change.
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful. Yep. Well, thank you very much, Ramesh, for the conversation. It's great to have you here.
No, thanks for the opportunity, and it was good talking to you, Pavel. Thank you.
Thanks so much to Pavel and Ramesh for a great conversation. And thank you, all of our wonderful attendees, for joining us today at the second Low Code, No Code Summit. Of course, all of today's sessions will be available on demand. So don't worry, if you missed out on a session, you'll be able to catch up later. And remember, you can access the speaker Q&A room below right now. Click that pop-up and we'll take you right there. Thanks so much again for attending, and we look forward to seeing you at the next VentureBeat event in person or virtually. Thank you.
Every day you face challenges and opportunities, changing market dynamics, increasing business complexity, changing customer expectations, regulatory changes. You need agility to respond to the challenges today and take advantage of the opportunities tomorrow. You need to change how you work, in the office and out in the field. The Appian low-code platform can help. Appian lets you orchestrate people, technologies, and data into a single workflow so you can drive real business impact. Speed is the new battleground. Slow development in apps don't work with today's business demand for speed and agility. Change is inevitable. The Appian low-code platform gives you the power to discover, design, and automate powerful apps and workflows so you can stay ahead today and tomorrow. Learn more at appian.com.
Okay, season 6. Oh, this will take forever. Or not. Do I just focus on when things don't work and not appreciate when they do? I love it when work actually works.
I just booked this parking spot, this desk, and this conference room. I'm filing status reports on an app that I made. I'm not even a coder, and it works. I like your bag.
When your digital solutions work, the world works. That's why the world works with ServiceNow.
Low-code and no-code platforms offer a great, fast way to develop low-risk applications. However, not everyone is going to automatically know who to work with on governance, ideas, risk, things like that. That's where we come in. We have a training program meant to lessen the stress and introduce guardrails for application development. Learn more today at pmi.org/citizen developer.